You all pause briefly. You're stood on a grassy hill that leads up towards what appears to be a ramshackle dockyard and a fortress sat at the base of a huge lake. The last thing you remember, you were stood outside the Abbey ruins, having just rescued the young friar from the Harpies in the Abbey. However, as you all become aware of your surroundings, Weimar and Quentin, the two of you are running almost side by side as you all sort of slow to a jog and then a puzzled stop. Weimar and Quentin, you feel like a weight in your arms, and as you look down, the two of you are dragging between you, each of you holding one of his arms, the young friar, the young priest that you rescued from the ruins. However, now he appears in quite a bad way. He is unconscious, is the least part of it, and as you look down at his, I'm not going to say body because he's not dead, you check that, but he is very badly injured and unconscious. He is covered in bruises, seemingly across the majority of his body, as though he'd been bludgeoned by falling rocks or some sort of a large blunt object. Livid purple bruises standing out on his exposed skin. His clerical vestments, his monk's robes, sort of torn and slightly dishevelled. Brock, as you slow down to a sort of puzzled jog, not really knowing how you got here, you feel an even greater weight in both of your arms, and as you look down, you see that you're actually carrying your wife. She is also unconscious and showing similar bruises, although not quite as extensively. Like Lan is literally like in your arms as you slow down. You're like, oh, what am I doing here? Then you look down. She's in your arms. Malcolm, you're a little bit ahead of the rest. Likewise, you're not really sure how you got here, heading up this hill towards this ramshackle fort in Docklands. The last thing you remember was being outside the old abbey. As you slow down, you see like your dog's still at your heels. You sort of hear the screeching sort of footsteps behind you of your companions. You turn round, they're sort of stopping, like people have just sort of blinking and looking around, puzzled, like people have just come out of a very dark room into the bright light of day. As you take them in, as I've described, you can see Weimar and Quentin are sort of dragging the injured friar, his legs trailing on the grass behind him as they're each sort of like holding one of his arms and carrying him between them. Brock is sort of like stood there. You've all got, as you look at yourselves, you've all got various like nicks and cuts, but nothing like too serious, like surface level stuff. Brock is carrying the body of, well, she's not dead, but Lan Rivar in his arms. Again, she has bruises on her, but nowhere near as extensive as the friar. You all take this in as you look around. Like I say, you're not entirely sure how you got here, but as I say, you can see this sort of ramshackle dock / fort on the hill, overlooking what appears to be a sort of placid, mist-shrouded lake off to your right. As the hunters of your group are sort of looking around, you can see running from the fort to the road. You recognise that was the road that ran past the Abbey ruins, and as you peer sort of along the lake where there's less tree cover, you can just about see in the distance like one of the taller bits of the Abbey ruins, and you think you must be like at least 2 or 3 days to like the northwest of where you previously were. Over to you guys.
What the
Are we all looking at each other in the same sort of dazed,
Yeah,
confused?
Everyone's just sort of like, I mean, obviously
So-
you guys can decide what expressions you've got yourself, but like everyone looks quite puzzled.
Well, we all seem to have sort of come out of it at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, we're all sort of looking at each other. What more witchcraft have we been succumbed to? Surely we just left the Abbey just minutes before. I'll just be looking around puzzled, trying to get my bearings and
One thing
take
you
it
do
in.
notice as you look around Brock is that by the placement of the sun and by the amount of daylight that's filtering in, it's mid-morning effectively, so not like early morning, but it's still the morning. Whereas sort of like when you left the Abbey, it was fairly late in the day.
I'll just say again, does anyone else remember our journey here?
No, I have no memory of it.
Check on our new friend. Breathing, I suppose.
He's breathing, and as you sort of check on him, he's like, but he's like barely conscious. Like you can see he basically looks like someone's like collapsed like a stone wall on top of him. He's covered in bruises. You think maybe his jaw's dislocated, all of his clothing's torn. There's like cuts and bruises all over him. He is alive, he is breathing, but he's like in a very bad way. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not about to drop dead at any second, but he definitely needs a bit of R&R before he's going to be up and about, and probably like tap dancing's off the card for the next few weeks.
Should we check out this fort for a place to rest up?
Well, I'm concerned, what has happened to us and who's done it, who's responsible for this loss of memory. How did we get here?
As Brock's saying that, and you're mentioning the fort, Malcolm, you sort of look across towards it, and it seems to be sort of extending from the lake. There's this teeming sort of ramshackle dock surrounded by sort of higgledy-piggledy wooden buildings, and then the ground rises up into a sort of cliff above the docks, and there appears to be some sort of stone keep with what looks to be like a fairly run-down and dilapidated wooden palisade surrounding it.
Are there any tracks nearby?
Yeah, there's like normal people tracks. In fact, as you look around, you can see sort of like on the outskirts of the docks, there's a few sort of people wearing just like standard sort of, I suppose, like fishermen's clothes, waders, stuff like that, fishing rods out sort of in the lake. Like I said, there's a very like light, low-lying mist over the lake, but it's nothing. It's not like a fog or anything. It's just like a bit of light mist from slightly cooler water meeting warmer air.
Does it look like anyone's noticed us and look in our direction, or
yeah, a couple of a couple of the fishermen have sort of like looked up as they've seen you sort of running across, but they've sort of gone back to their business. I mean,
but no sort of massive hysteria like we just appeared out of nowhere or something stupid.
No, they just sort of look up as in like, oh, there's some new people over there, and then obviously you guys aren't really causing a fuss or like cracking off or anything, so they've just sort of gone back to their business.
Okay. Well, maybe we should ask them if it's safe to go in the fort and, like you say, get a bit of rest and try and come to our senses.
How far are we from the dock?
Oh, you're probably 80 feet, something like that.
And it's like a small village around it. It's kind of a fishing dock and fishing village?
Yeah, it's basically like a small sort of fishing village built around these ramshackle wooden docks. And then, like I say, there's like a cliff overlooking it. The sort of ground rises up behind it. And then this stone fort is on the cliff with this like crappy wooden palisade around it. So seemingly like overlooking the lake, and its shadow falls across the docks in the morning sun.
Okay, and how far up the hill do we think it is? Is it like a big long?
I mean, you probably took him maybe an hour.
Okay.
It's not a massive trek, and it's a fair. If you're sort of approaching from the not cliff side, obviously, it's a fairly sort of shallow incline.
Okay. Cool. So I think we should walk towards the village and find someone to talk to.
Well, is it worth talking to the fisherman first, just to give us I think an understanding where this place, what it is, and who lives there, sort of thing?
Yeah.
I think I'll head towards the fisherman.
Yeah, not a problem. You head towards the nearest of these fishermen. He's a fairly sort of burly like guy, obviously used to pulling in nets and sort of fairly like hard physical labour. He's wearing like a sleeveless jerkin. He's got sort of like big waders on and like tough sort of like leather trousers, and he's wearing. He's stood in about a foot of water, like in the shallows of the lake. He's got a net next to him with a few fish in it. He's got his various like tackle sort of on the ground next to him. He's got a fishing rod sort of dangling in the water. You can see like a couple of feathers and whatever as bait, sort of bobbing up and down further out in the water, and brightly coloured too, so they're easy to spot despite this low-lying mist. And he's just sort of stood there like minding his business, like checking his rod. You see that there's a couple of rods next to him that he's just sort of set up sticking out of the ground, and he occasionally looks over and checks them.
Yeah. I just call out to him, "Hello there."
He's like, "Oh, morning to you."
Obviously, I'm still carrying Lan, and I say my companions and myself are looking for somewhere safe to rest. We have some injured members of the group, and looking at that fort, is it a safe place to visit? Would they
He says,
have
"Oh,
any issues?"
he says, Fort Vulgar." He says, "Yeah, it's pretty safe. You should be all right there." He, as he's talking, he's like climbed out of the water, and he sort of like stepped towards you, and he's like, "Do you need some help?"
It's very kind, but
the rods will be all right for a bit.
Oh,
As he walks over to you, Brock, you notice, like I say, he's got like a sleeveless jerkin. You notice he has this tattoo on his upper arm that's like it appears to show like a cluster of like black tentacles. It's like tattooed on his upper arm.
I haven't seen that before, have I?
No. He's like, "Oh, you're a stranger to these parts. If there's anything I can do to help," he says, I live in the little village there, just in the shadow of Fort Volker."
No, we're just passing by, but like I said, we're just looking for somewhere to rest up and recover.
Yeah, he looks at you. He's like, "Oh, what happened?" Like, obviously, like seeing Lan and the friar being dragged behind. He's like, "We were attacked by crookhorns. I mean, we're pretty near the Nagwood. They're a danger here."
I've not heard of these creatures.
He's like, "Oh," he's like crookhorns. He's like, "Oh, they're terrible." He's like, nothing like the more civilized beast folk they've got in the southern Dolmen Wood. The ones that follow the rules. And wow, if you were to tell, they even follow the one true God. But I know Lord Brackenwold's always had cordial relations with him, but now these crookhorns, they're horrible, diseased, insane creatures. Follow some foul thing that lives in the woods north here. We call it the Naglord. And they're always causing problems. Like raiding and like romping out of here. I mean, that's why the bit north of here we call it the Nagwood locally, because to be honest, I don't go much further than further north than this. It's pretty dangerous. I mean, don't get me wrong, Lady Harrimore sends out regular patrols in her territory, but when the patrols aren't about, if you're just a simple man like myself, it can be very dangerous. I stick close to the fort myself. I'm not aiming to have no horrible creatures boiling and roiling out of the woods and taking me unawares."
What would one of these creatures look like?
He says, they're horrible things. They from a distance, if you're seeing them through the trees, you might mistake them for a man. But when they get closer, they're like some unholy, melding of man and beast, great horns and foaming mouths full of fangs. Oh,
it doesn't
terrible
sound
creatures.
good.
Whoa.
Well, thank you very much for your warning of these foul creatures. But like I say, we need to press on and rest up. But
Well, not a problem. I mean, I wish you well, stranger, and may Big Chuck smile on you.
Big Chuck. Okay. Well, I suggest I head back to the group, and I suggest we head to the village then.
Okay, so whilst Brock's been having this conversation with the fisherman, is there anything you guys want to have done while that's been going on?
I guess I just want to be looking around for anything that's suspicious or that looks out of place in a village of this nature.
You don't find anything suspicious, but you are feeling a little bit odd beyond the apparent memory loss. If you've ever been in a place where the air pressure has changed and you sort of get that pressure like building up in your ears just before your ears pop, you've got a strange sort of feeling like that. It's not really painful, it's just sort of like odd.
Okay.
So Weimar will be having a sort of subdued conversation with the ground, as he is still mad for almost a week. So he's sort of, because I imagine we sort of stopped to let Brock go off, and there's a little sort of excursion there, and we've got we've got Brother Danwell on the ground, I imagine, just resting.
Yeah.
And Weimar's keeping watch and sort of like brushing the ground, like whispering to it, and hearing whispers in return, as is his wont.
Indeed. As you're sort of brushing the ground next to Brother Dunwallow, you notice that like both of his like fists are clenched, and as you're sort of like talking to the ground around him, you can see there's something like just the edge of something green like poking out of one of his clenched fists.
So I guess then I would be like, Brother Dunwallow, you too are a friend of the grass, and so let's see, and I'll see if he releases his death grip.
Yeah, it takes you, you sort of like have to like massage his like hand a little bit to get it to release it, but he's not actually got rigor mortis or anything, so it's fine. As you open it, there's like a small like bit of like moss that's like gripped in his hand. And as it sort of drops down and you like touch it, and it's normal moss for all intents and purposes, as you touch it, you have a very brief sort of split-second impression of like seeing a load of moss and hearing like a big booming voice, but it's all sort of hazy and out of focus, and you just hear like the... You don't really hear the words, and it's very brief. It passes in like a second.
So I'll sort of perk up a bit, and it's like, I think I have a guess of what might happen, what might have happened to us. Do you recall the peculiar song that those creatures sung, and it did indeed affect me deeply, at least. I wonder if we may have run into more things like that. It would, I think, stand to reason that these creatures are not the only ones here gifted with powerful songs, as I think the forest may hide an entire orchestra of, well, mystical nature. I'll sort of like talk to myself and to whoever's in the vicinity.
Indeed. And as you finish saying that, that's when Brock comes back and he's like, I think we should head for the fort. Obviously, you're still carrying Lan. You've heard like snatches of his conversation with the fisherman. It wasn't that far off, so you can all effectively be aware of what each other are up to.
And I've heard Weimar just sort of announcing.
Yeah, my new theory.
Some flash of inspiration. So with that, I think Brock's gonna try and come up with some sort of moss or something to actually put in his ears to try and block out some of the sound. If he's thinking there's some sort of witchcraft that's coming from sounds and singing and people charming.
Yeah, that's not a problem. There's plenty of moss around. There's stones with moss growing on. You're in like a fairly damp environment. You're near a lake. So yeah, finding moss isn't a problem. You can like plug your ears up with moss. That's
Even if it just dampens it or, blocks some of it out.
yeah.
Just to...
it doesn't have an immediate effect. You know, like plug your ears and you're like, oh my god, my memory's come back.
I know, but I just meant for future.
Yeah.
If we run into something that.
Yeah, if you run into anything that has like a sort of sonic based attack, for want of a better term,
Might help.
Remind me that you've plugged your ears up. That is absolutely fine. You get a couple of you find some like a couple of pieces of like spongy moss and you're like into your ears.
Yeah, and I'll only take it out when I feel super safe and in the village and stuff, and I'll just take a clump of it so I can just sort of take it out and put new stuff in if I need to sort of communicate and whatever.
Yeah, that's fine.
So off to the village, I think.
Yep.
Okay, not a problem. So, you guys are basically heading towards like the docks and the little village. Is that correct? Rather than the fortress that overlooks it. Is that the plan?
I mean, that's closer, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that's probably the best place to head out first. Do you think?
Start there, anyway.
Okay, no problems. So let me move you onto another map. Which hopefully shouldn't take too long to load because it's a tiny map. Okay. So, as you guys are approaching this this small sort of ramshackle wooden area, you head into what appears to be a small cobblestone square. There's a few sort of fishermen and locals knocking around. There's a little bit of trading and like chatting and stuff like that going on. It looks like a very sort of crude marketplace, effectively. You can also see just slightly to the west of you are the sort of main docks. There's like a little bridge going over the river. There's a few like wooden boats, stuff like that. There's plenty of people knocking around, just doing their general day-to-day stuff. However, Brock, as you sort of walk around, there's like loads of fishermen, and it's all the sort of people you'd expect to find in a sort of dock area. And there's like people trading like wicker baskets and trading fish and equipment and stuff like that. As you're walking around, Brock, you notice that you keep seeing like people with these like black tentacle tattoos on their arms, and like you see people with it on like other parts of their bodies as well, not just the arm. You see some people have it on the neck, some people have it on the leg, but you see like you must see at least out of the 20-30 odd people you've seen, easily half of them have this tattoo.
Yeah, I'll point it out to the other members of the group if they haven't noticed, and just ask, does anyone know what that is or seen anything similar?
I've seen things like this back home.
And
Not in New Zealand, but home before that.
Is it normally related to some sort of faith or some?
Oh, it's just
group?
People sort of drawing what they see. I presume these people fish for sort of octopi and other things.
As you're sort of having this discussion and you're walking around, you can also see a few sort of town guard, for want of a better term. You can see they're wearing tabards with the sort of black coloration and the sort of like silver unicorn on it that you previously saw in Fort Brackenwold. It's the same colours, which you assume are the Brackenwold colours. They don't really look quite as well trained as the guards you saw at Brackenwold Fort, which might lead you to assume that this place is like there's not very often that much danger here. You've gone from like seeing like professionally trained soldiers to like, these are like farmers with spears and like tabards on. They're not the sort of like CSI Dolmenwood They're just like
Oh.
local people.
I'll just sort of say to the group, like, did I hear correctly? And Brock, maybe you'll be able to fill in, but was it not said that there's beast creatures in the area and it gets a little bit busy?
Well, he said that was further to the north, the woods to the north. I don't know how far, but these horned creatures. But he seemed to think the village was safe, and they're further north. But how far was the woods is, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah,
but,
I guess it's all relative.
But yeah, they don't seem to have much trouble here by the looks of the place. It doesn't seem that well fortified.
Seems leisurely. Nice place to visit. We should go and see what's on the offer. Like what the tap has.
As you're having this discussion, Quentin, a couple of guys who are like chatting and obviously like, lost in conversation. One of them like just bumps into you accidentally, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, stranger, wasn't looking where I was going." And then his friend who's with him was like, "Oh yeah, come on, I can see you've had a couple of pints at the knob already. Come on, let's go and have another one, and we'll get you settled down." He's like, "Sorry about that, stranger. He's had a little. Don't mean anything by it."
Obviously check, see if he's trying to pickpocket me.
You check yourself, and nothing appears to have been taken.
Where's this pub you're at?
He's like, oh, he says Chuck's Knob. He says, well, you see the bridge over there, just over the river. He's like, over there, past the tax tower, the big tower you can see there, and then take the path to your left as you're over there. Can't miss it.
All right. It's this way.
Lead on. The spirits, they call to me.
Okay, so you guys head over the bridge. You pass this tower that they mentioned. They call the tax tower. It's a fairly squat. I mean, it's not like a tall tower. It's like 2 stories. It's made of like pale whitey pink stone. You can see there's like horses next to it. There's like a little stable. You see a few what you might think of like squires or sort of like hired helpers, so like feeding the horses hay and stuff like that. Then you turn left and head to an old wooden building. It looks like you sort of vaguely following behind these 2 guys, since that's where they said they were going. It looks like an old wooden warehouse, to be honest, like converted perhaps. But there's a creaking wooden tavern sign outside, and it appears to show a slimy green tentacle on the sign. You can see that there's a couple of people sort of sat on wooden chairs and stools outside, smoking pipes. As you watch, you see a young man, probably in his mid-teens. He comes walking out of the pub or the inn, you might assume. As he walks, as the door opens behind him, you hear like a few voices, like, "Yay!" like cheering as he goes out, and you can see him sort of, he's like, and as he sort of takes his hand away from rubbing his arm, you can see he's got one of these black tentacle tattoos on his arm, but like the skin around it is all like red and raw, as though it's like just been done. And a couple of the guys are like smoking pipes. They're like, "Your first one is a youngster. Don't worry, the stinging will go away soon. Don't you worry about it. Take from us old timers. Good to see the young folk keeping up the traditions." And they go back to smoking their pipes and talking about like the day's fishing catch. The young lad's like, he looks like he's about to say something, and then he's just like, oh. And he starts like walking back towards walks past you guys, just gives you like a friendly nod. Starts walking past you back towards the ramshackle village. You see him heading towards the bridge. The 2 men you were following have like disappeared inside.
Yeah. I'm going to head in. I'm looking for somewhere to rest, or land to put land down to rest, and the brother.
Not
so
a
looking
problem.
for a room, basically.
You head inside, and it's like I say, it's a pretty bit crude compared to the taverns you've been in previously. Like I say, it looks like basically it used to be like a big wooden warehouse, and some vague attempts have been made to like convert it into an inn. It's basically like just a huge room with tables and chairs and some booze in it. One thing that does strike your attention though is as you walk in, they're sort of stood behind the bar and sort of like chatting to people, is what appears to be a very sort of slightly rotund, let's say, sort of burly looking man. However, his face has like some of the characteristics of like a goat's face, and he has like two large horns sort of sweeping back over his head, and his legs actually appear like those of a goat, with hooves bending the wrong way, sort of rough wiry fur on them. They're locked. As you walk in, the two guys you followed are at the bar, and he's basically saying, "Oh, what'll it be?" And they're like asking for drinks, and he's sorting out drinks, etc.
Does there seem to be any sign of sort of accommodation of any sort? Or is it literally just the one room?
It literally just looks like a big warehouse with tables and chairs.
I'm just gonna, wait for them to have their be served or whatever, and ask the barman or the guy serving the drinks if he knows of anywhere we could find, a room basically to stay.
He says, "Well, if you and there's an odd sort of like, which I won't attempt to do because it'd be very. There's an odd sort of like slight sort of like goaty like warble to like his voice as he sort of says things like that sort of like that goats do, sort of like every time he speaks." And he's like, "Well, if you want to get your head down, stranger, if you've got a bedroll, you're welcome to keep down at the far end. I can't promise you it's going to be quiet or very private, but I ain't going to charge you for it." Like,
and there's nowhere else.
To get your head right down. He's like, "Well, no." He's like, "Well, we're the only Chuck Snob's the only inn in the village, so to speak. After all, we're only a simple little village here, and well, even the old fort's tumbling down a bit now. Where we don't really see much trade or that hereabouts. So there's not much call for one of your fancy big city taverns."
Okay, that's fair. I shall take you up on the offer. So I'm going to head over and try and make Lan as comfortable as possible.
As you sort of head down the far end of, like I said, this long sort of warehouse building, you can see that as you get about 3/4 of the way down, the tables and chairs actually stop, and sort of at the far end, there's already like a few people who basically just like chucked their bedrolls down on the floor in like free spaces, and they're getting their heads down, and it seems just like almost like like student sort of like DOS houses.
Yeah.
It almost seems a bit like that. He's like, "Oh, it's not a room. I'm not going to charge you, but like it is what it is. It's just a place you can get your head down, but you're going to have to put up with the noise and the people." So you can easily find. I mean, it's early in the morning, so there's only a couple of people sort of getting their head down. So you can easily find space to like set Lan down. I say she appears in better shape than young brother Dunwallow, but
as soon as I've sort of made her comfortable, I'll go and get the brother and do similar, and put them sort of basically sort of close together so I can look over them and watch over them.
Yeah, not a problem. You managed to find like one of the corners of the warehouse, which is like pretty clear, and you basically put them in there. Because obviously, then you've only got to watch a couple of sort of angles of approach, rather than sort of like watch them all around. So you set them down and you start making them as comfortable as you can. What are the rest of you guys doing as this is going on?
I'm going back to the old guys.
Yeah, you head outside. There's these two couple of like they look like old fishermen. They've got like waders on, big like Captain Birdseye, like grey bushy beards. They've got big like pipes. They're smoking. There's probably like an open sort of leather pouch with some tobacco in it. There's a couple of pewter tankards on the little table. They're sat outside, and they're just sort of like they're basically puffing on their pipes, and they're like, "Oh, I remember when we had like proper fishermen like back in our day. We had none of these like newfangled rods that these youngsters are using now. You had to have proper skill at it when it was back in my day." You say, "Oh, the weather came, creatures from the deep, big chuck. We had to all deal with it like a man. None of this newfangled malarkey. They were proper fishermen back in them days." And they barely even seem to notice you as you sort of stroll out of the inn and approach them. They're too
Have
busy
they got tattoos as well?
You can't tell with one because he's a bit more well clothed. One of them you do see, like he's got the tattoo on his neck there, although it's quite faded. It was obviously done like quite some time ago.
Oh, sorry, I'll just say then. Excuse me, gentlemen.
Is that? Oh, what can we do for you, young'un?
I just wondered if you could tell me about the tradition of these tentacle tattoos here.
He says, "Oh, yeah, of course, sir." And the other guy actually like pulls up his sleeve to show he has got one on his arm. And he's like, "Oh, well, it's a local tradition. Legend has it that there's a great monster that dwells in the depths of the lake. We call him Big Chuck. It's just legend, mind. I mean, I've been living here all my life and I ain't never seen nothing like it. But you know how these things get started, and it was thought back in the day that if you had to go out on the deeper waters to do your fishing, if you had this tattoo, it'd protect you from Big Chuck coming up and grabbing you with his tentacles. And wow, it got to be a bit of a tradition. And now, sort of like amongst us fisher folk in the village, when you sort of come of age and you start being able to go out and make a living for yourself, it's tradition for you to get one of these tattoos. In fact, older Shankwalder there in Chuck's Knob, he does them now, and well, he doesn't charge nothing for them, so it's a bit of a rite of passage for the youngsters, coming of age. But well, anyone can get them. Like I say, Shankwald doesn't even charge for it. I mean, he can do it. He can do the tattoos as well, but he does charge for them.
Cheers, old fella. When your drink's empty, come see me.
It's like, oh, most kind of you. What's your name, young fella, my lad?
It's Quentin, mate.
Quentin, oh, that's an unusual name, but much obliged to you, And he has a big puff on his pipe.
I'll see you inside.
Maybe. And you head back inside. Okay, so while Quentin's talking to the old folk, what are Weimar and Malcolm up to?
Yeah, I was stalking that way as well, so
yeah, that's fine.
Probably,
you can be outside as this is going on.
Yeah, so it's probably shadowing Quentin outside because I was gonna talk to them about the exact same thing. So
if there's anything you want to interject or anything extra you wanted to ask, feel free to let us know, and we'll.
So they sort of indicated like where you could go get some ink done.
Yeah, they basically said that Shankwald, the sort of proprietor of the tavern, which you assume is like the big goat man.
Yeah.
They said that he does the tattoos and he doesn't actually charge for the tentacle ones. They're like, if you want something like fancy or different, he can do that as well, but you do charge for other stuff. But like, because it's part of like local tradition, and to be honest, it's a fairly simple tattoo. It's just like a black sort of wiggly tentacle. It's probably not difficult to do, and they're like, I don't even charge for that.
So I guess I would be going over next to the proprietor and negotiating for a price.
You walk in and there's this big burly goat man, and he's like, "Do something for you, stranger."
I hear tell that you're the man to see about some ink.
All right, I do a bit of needlework now and then.
What's your range?
Well, I can do pretty much most things. I've got most colours. It depends what you're after.
We got blue.
Yeah, dark blue. It's a bit of a purpley blue, but
We can
dark blue enough.
You know what like an oyster is?
Of course, I know what an oyster is.
Right. So pearls, right?
Right. Yeah.
So and I'll explain to him about like an open oyster with like a shiny pearl, like giving off like the light rays and whatnot, which I would like to like not like large, but something on the forearm there.
He's like, yeah, I can do that for you, not a problem. It take a couple of hours, and I should tell you that like I can do it for you fairly cheap if you just wanted it with black ink, but the blue is a little bit more expensive. I can do it, but you're looking at about 15 gold crown for it.
Yeah, let's go with the black.
Depending on how big you want it. I mean, if we're talking about this sort of
size.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I'll tell you what, We'll call it 5 gold crown if you just want it in black. Don't want to take much doing.
Yeah.
Probably take about half hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, deal.
He's like, right, well, you want it now?
I think yes, because, and I'll look over, and we're basically settling down for a bit, right?
Yeah.
Like
he walks over and he like grabs a stool and just like puts it next to the bar, and he's like, Robbo, mind the bar for a bit. Got to do a bit of needlework on this fellow here, and like one of the locals, you presume, is just like, yeah, no problems, and he sort of meanders over to the bar and he's like, right, get yourself sat down on this chair. He's like, and he rummages under the bar and he comes back with like one of those leather like roll out sort of like pouches. You can see there's little bottles of various like pigments and inks in there, and then there's these like massive, almost like acupuncture style like needles in there, like loads of them, different thicknesses, etc. And he's like, he sort of pulls out what looks like a little wooden peg about that sort of long, and he's like, right, now can be a bit painful. He's like, you're gonna need this, or
you see this here, and I'll like stomp my peg leg.
He's like, well, yeah. He's like, but it do get some people funny. I've had big burly fellas come in here, and a few minutes of these like needles jabbing at their skin. Well, they come over all funny, and their eyes start rolling about, and they start swooning like a little maiden going out on her first date.
Yeah,
and I've seen young lads handle it fine.
Yeah, I did this, and it was probably the single most unpleasant thing in my life, and
I can believe it.
Yeah, so we'll give it a go.
He's like, right, sit yourself down then, and he starts. As you know, it's like traditional tattooing. He's like jabbing you with these little needles.
You stick it in quite literally.
And obviously, it's painful. But like you say, you've been through far worse things. So no test, no nothing or any of that nature involved. Yep. It's very painful. Your arm's going to be a bit sore. It's going to take him about half an hour to do. It's going to cost you 5 gold pieces. So take that off like your party funds or whatever you're using.
Yeah, I think because I do have like some artifacts and like some silver, but Malcolm, if you got the the total funds, then
no worries.
Yeah,
he's like, do you want me to throw in a black tentacle while you're doing it? He's like, throw that in for nothing.
Nah, I was a pearl diver.
Right.
It was the tentacle for other people's business.
He's like, wow, it's more of a local tradition than anything. All the fishermen hereabouts have got them. He says, wow, I just when the last fella sort of like passed on, unfortunately, I sort of inherited this, and he's chatting while he's like doing this, and he sort of gestures down at the roll with all the gear, and he's like, yeah, I sort of inherited this, and wow, people were starting to complain like, how they're going to keep the tradition on. I thought, wow, I'm not too bad at it. It took me a while to get up to speed, but I've sort of kept the tradition going.
Yeah, it's fun. Local color, quite literally.
Wow, yeah. And he carries on. So one thing you do notice about this guy is he's like doing it. His breath is absolutely horrendous. Like the smell of his breath is, well, it smells like a goat smells. It's fairly pungent.
Are his teeth falling out, or is it something else?
His teeth aren't falling out. However, much as his face resembles a goat's with the horns and everything, his teeth look like those of a goat. And his breath smells like he's like at half of a farmyard, like dung and all. But to be honest, it's probably a good job you've got the pain of the needles to like distract from the awfulness of breath.
Yeah.
But he carries on doing that, and like half an hour later, obviously feel free to note so you carry a cheat or not, you will have an oyster tattoo.
Yep.
So while that's going on, Malcolm, you can obviously see Weimar's getting his tats done. Quentin's outside talking to the old folk. Brock's settling your injured companions in the corner, like keeping an eye on him, like guarding him, sort of stood over them. What's Malcolm up to?
So I think I'd like to step outside at the same time Quentin does.
Yep.
And
I see Quentin's just sort of like finished talking to these old folk, and they're like going, "Oh, thanks very much, youngster." As he's like saying, "I'll get you a drink at the bar."
And I guess I'm looking to find some little scamp running around.
Yeah, there's youngsters about.
So I want to grab the first youngster and ask him, is there any healers in town or any healers around?
He's like, oh, what do you mean, like? And he almost looks around to make sure like he's not going to get tied off. He's like, what do you mean, like devilry in that?
Yeah, or herbalists too. But yes, devilment as well.
He's like, oh no, you won't find no devilry about it. He says, oh, I tell you, we might be able to help. You know, he's like, you see that hill up there, and he points to like this hill with a sort of a small chapel on the top of it, and he's like, oh, that's St. Dugan's chapel. He's like, if you go up there, the old friar might be able to help you out.
Okay.
I don't know anything about no devilry though, or healing though, but
okay.
It's just older Father Drabe might be able to help you out.
Okay. And who was the lord of the fort?
He says, oh well, we don't actually have a lord. He says all this hereabouts is Brackenwold. Like you can see the unicorn. That's the Brackenwold unicorn. He says there's one of Brackenwold's knights who's like in charge of the fort, and but he doesn't really come down to the docks very much. I mean, obviously we see the tax collectors and whatever from the tower, and there's more knights and whatnot there who, like, you know, if we're in any danger, I'm sure they'd come out and save us. But yeah, he mostly like lets us get on with our stuff. Does Sir Osric?
Sir Osric.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And who knows the history of the town and the fort best?
He says, oh, the history of the town. He says, well, you probably be Father Drabe. He says, oh, you could go to the dockmaster's cottage. It's just down the way. The old dockmaster's fair getting on in years. He might be able to tell you something. And he sort of like points to this building to the south of the tavern and says, oh yeah, that's the old dockmaster's place. And he might be able to tell you a bit.
Okay. Cool. And I'll toss him a silver coin. And
he's like, oh, thanks. And he disappears into the inn. And then like a few moments later, as like the door's still like swinging shut, you hear the voice of like the Goatman proprietor from inside going, no, you're still too young. Go on, get out of it. And you see him sort of like sheepishly come like walking out. No. And he starts like mooching his way back off towards the village.
Cool. And then I'll head for the chapel and try and speak to Father Dre.
Yeah, not a problem. You head up this slightly steep hill. I mean, it's nothing massive. It's just like a steep hill. There's a tall, narrow church building made of wood on top of it. You can see there's a mixture of, again, like fisherfolk and what look like boatmen based on their sort of gear that they're wearing. They're all sort of knelt in prayer. You can see like the cross of like the Church of the One True God sort of hung up in there. And there's a bold, chubby man wearing vicar's garb, and he's walking around, sort of just talking to the locals. You know, sort of things like, oh, you know, how's your mother doing? Oh, yes, good. I'm glad she's on the mend. Well, tell her that I'll say a prayer for her come Sunday's service. And you know, sort of going around and just making general chit chat with people.
Okay. So I'll kind of just approach him and go, sorry, is it Father Dre, is it?
Drabe. He says, oh, yes, that's me, Father Drabe.
We've recently arrived in town.
Oh.
We have some injured companions.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry to hear that.
I hear that you may be able to assist, maybe a medic of some description.
He says, well, I wouldn't call myself a medic. I do have some small knowledge of herbs. I mean, it's mostly used for, treating the ailments of the old folk and seeing away like nasty colds and stuff like that. But I'm happy to try and do what I can if you think it'd be useful.
Well, I certainly can't do any harm if you were willing to come down to Truck's Knob and check them out. We would be really appreciative.
Yes, of course. Lead on. He turns to like one of his parishioners. He says, "Could you just keep an eye on the place? I've just got to go and go with this fellow here. Spot of business. I'll be back soon. Don't you worry." And he sort of waddles out after you towards Chuck's Knob. You both re-enter. So you head over to where Brock is, still sort of guarding Lan and the younger brother. And he looks at them and he says, "Oh, very odd. How did they get these injuries?"
We're not sure, but we were hoping that you might be able to ease their suffering.
Oh, I don't do any of that. And they said, "Oh, I see. Sorry. I thought you meant something else." Well, yes, and he starts like rummaging around in like his belt pouch, and he shouts over some water at the bar, and he mixes some herbs in it, and he makes this sort of herbal tea. Takes about 15 minutes, and he sort of like gently like gives a bit to Lan and to Brother Dunswallow, and it does seem to sort of like calm them, like their breathing becomes a little bit more steady. It doesn't insta heal any of their wounds or whatever, but it seems to like calm them down. Their breathing becomes more steady, their chests rising and falling more regularly. And he says, "Well, I'm afraid I think that's probably the best I can do. I mean, they'll definitely need to sleep off some of this, but I'll leave the rest of the tonic there. When they wake up, divide it between the two of them. See they drink it all down. I mean, it's not the best tasting thing in the world, but it will help the body to heal itself a little bit more quickly."
We will indeed. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, not a problem. Are you planning on staying long in a?
A number of days, as we need our companions to regain their I guess to recover from their injuries.
Well, if there's anything else you need, you can find me at the chapel most days. Blessings of the one true God on you and your friends. May he keep them safe and see them restored to full health.
Hopefully he will, and on you.
And he sort of smiles and nods, and then he heads out the door. He like chats to a couple of locals on his way out, and then disappears out the door.
Are the guys' wounds kind of bandaged and cleaned and all that good stuff?
He'll have done all of that while he was sort of preparing.
Okay. Cool. So once he's gone, I'll turn to the guys and say, suggest we settle down, give the guys some time to recover, and maybe talk about what our next move should be.
Let's have a drink. Let's have a meal. Let's have some sleep.
Do we need to recover any provisions after some exhausted? Someone was a little bit. What was it last session?
They were a bit ravenous.
Yes.
A little bit ravenous on the provisions. Can't remember who that was, but
I think it was a few people.
A little bit wasteful.
Yeah, we have about 10 days worth for the 5-7 of us. So I think we're not desperate.
Okay.
A bit of food.
And to be fair, you really don't think if you needed to, it probably wouldn't be difficult to do a bit of fishing. Like there's plenty of people fishing hereabouts.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So yeah, over in the corner, you see this like large sort of burly goat man who was like previously behind the bar. You see like Weimar sat on this this stool. He's getting his like tattoo done on his arm. But they're sort of chit chatting as he's like pricking him with these needles on his arm. While Miles occasionally like he sees that he's turned his face like as far away from this like goat man's head as like he possibly can. He's like trying to like breathe through his mouth while he's like talking to him.
Well, he asked for it.
Okay. So what do you guys want to do? You want to
get a drink, get some food, get some sleep.
John, are we like exhausted, like we've been running all night, or are we refreshed?
You are pretty tired.
Okay. So it would be a reasonable assumption that we left at Abbey close to dusk, and we've run all night, and we're like kind of basically
you feel like
24 hours out of sleep kind of stuff.
You feel like you've undergone some pretty heavy like physical exertion. I mean, like Brock, obviously you know that you've been just about how your arms are aching. You've probably been like carrying land for quite some time. I mean, not to the point where like, oh, I can't lift my arms up, because you're like quite a strong fellow. But even you're like, oh yeah, I can tell I've been carrying a weight for a fair while.
And we have got signs of some sort of injuries, haven't we?
Yeah, you've all got like minor like nicks and scratches and a few bruises, but nothing like serious.
But still no way of really putting anything together to what caused those injuries.
Can I ask a local how far it is to the Abbey?
You ask one of the locals, and he's like, "Oh, it'll be about 2-3 days down the old road." He sort of jerks a thumb in the direction of the road heading out of the town.
Okay. And do people in the Dolmenwood track dates the way we do in Valcon? Do we know?
They don't seem to use the same calendar, but like you've not really sort of delved into the. Just for ease, I'm just sort of using like normal days. But they do have their own calendar, but obviously it doesn't really mean anything to you guys.
Okay. And would we think that we're tired enough that we've ran non-stop for 3 days?
You don't think you've ran non-stop for 3 days. You'd be like full ball, like exhausted, about ready to collapse. Whereas you feel tired, but you don't feel like, oh, I can't take another step or I'm going to just fall unconscious.
Okay.
And have we been eating? Have we used some of our provisions over the last few days?
You don't seem to have used any of your provisions, but you obviously have eaten. Now, whether that means you've hunted or foraged, you're not sure. But you're not like ravenously hungry or anything, so presumably you must have eaten.
Just got no memory of it.
Either that, or you've eaten some of your provisions and then you've foraged and like replaced them.
Yeah.
You honestly don't know.
I still find it strange that someone would like control your mind or wipe your mind, but there's no, you'd have thought they'd have like stole something from us, or had some sort of reason to do it, other than maybe it's the place we were at or some sort of area we went through that caused this,
or something wanted us out the forest.
But where were we heading before we sort of lost our way?
Well, the last you remember, like before the gap.
I know we was heading out of the Abbey, but
you were talking sort of like, oh, we know this Greensteel, this green blade, is somewhere to the west of here. We believe. Yeah. You were talking about trying to like narrow that down and like heading west in search of that.
Yeah.
But that's the last you remember. You don't actually remember heading west.
I think we was going to try and find another one of the stones, weren't we? Or potentially.
I think we've gone east though.
No, we've gone west.
No, I think we started to the east and we've been travelling west sort of ever since, haven't we? Well, sort of north and then west.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we're sort of roughly going the same direction, but they could be right. They could be trying to steer us away from something if we were going towards something they didn't want us to go towards.
It's that or that woman that Malcolm met. speeded up our progress.
What, the elf woman?
Yeah.
Strange that she would aid us without.
I was going to say she didn't seem to be scared to reveal herself before, did she? To Malcolm anyway. Maybe because we were there. Maybe that caused.
And John, we remember everything that happened in the Abbey, do we?
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Okay. So
like I said, the last you remember is you rescued Brother Dunswallow, you killed the Harpies, you were outside the Abbey going like, right, what we're going to do next for our next leg of the journey, and you were discussing, we know the sword's to the west, maybe we head west, we try and find a way to narrow down more exactly where it is, and we'll see where we go from there.
Okay.
You think the village would know anything about rumours or legends of swords, or the like the Droon, or anything that might aid us?
The young scamp I spoke to didn't seem all that comfortable talking about topics of that nature.
Magic-y stuff.
Yeah, not dissimilar to yourself. Perhaps once we've eaten and slept, the conversation with either the knight in charge or the father again might be of benefit. And yeah, because I wonder, because the priests of the one, assuming no one can overhear us.
There's plenty of conversation going on, but no one's paying back attention to you guys.
So the church of the one true God would be interested in silencing us if they know that we know what we know. The Droon were also very interested in the weapon. So they would also be interested in what we know, although we know very little of interest in them because beyond the fact that it left.
And your elven friend was very interested in the wood returning to its original.
Yeah, but I don't know why they would take memories from us.
I know, I'm not saying they have, but just thinking of all the parties that we've sort of been involved with since we've been here.
It does feel like a fey trick for time to pass so quickly.
So does that mean we were close to something that might have been of use?
I wonder, but there's also 3 days travel between here and there, so it may not even have been the Abbey.
Or were they trying to silence the brother? Since he seems to have come off it the worst. And we managed to escape.
If we're looking at the wounds, John, are they like sword wounds or like badly bruising, or are they like grazes? Or
they're more sort of bruises, as though like you've been like hit with like some sort of blunt object.
Okay.
I say we grab the sword, fuck this place, and go home.
If only it was that simple.
It is that simple.
All right, well, go and pick
we
up
have
the
to find
sword.
the sword
We'll
first.
wait here for you.
Yeah. I wonder what the sun sword can sense now that it's.
And
we have travelled a bit further west, haven't we?
I think since obviously like Wymar's had to step away for a little bit, we'll basically just say until he gets back, he's like having his tattoo done.
Yeah.
That's a nice, easy sort of like sideline for him.
Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, if you want to speak to the sword, obviously you can do that because I'm playing the sword. So.
Oh, we can wait for it while we get back. It's no problem.
As if by solar magic.
Did someone speak my name?
Oh, they said Wymar Lonegrove 3 times in a mirror. Yeah, so at this point, Wymar's finished having his tattoo done, and he sort of wanders back over. Because he's been trying to avoid the hellacious breath of this goat man, and obviously he was some distance from you guys, so he's not heard what you've been talking about. But he sort of wanders over, having arm looks a bit tender, but it's fine. You've got this oyster and pearl tattoo on your arm, or wherever you've asked for it to be done.
Yeah, arm. Yeah.
And you sort of wander over, you see these guys are sort of like huddled around the Brother Dunswallow and Lan Rivara are still on the bed rolls, but they look a bit more peaceful now. They're sort of like huddled around in obviously that fairly deep conversation. And as you approach, you hear like Brock going, "Well, if it's that easy, you go and get it, and we'll wait here for you." And Quentin's like, "What is that easy?"
What do we think about as far as the rest of the day? I say as I get there.
So we think we're going to spend the rest of the day resting, and then that we might speak to the friar again, or the knight in charge, tomorrow when we're rested and recovered a little bit. We have been discussing suggestions for who might have attacked us, and we have discussed the Church of the One True God, who may wish to silence the information that we have, the Droon, who may look to find out what information we found, or the Fae Elves may also potentially have done it.
So what I've been thinking about is, what if we found what we're looking for and that's why we're here now?
Yes.
And if that's the case, then I don't know what to do next.
Perhaps the old Dobie might inspire us.
Did we bring any with us? Or did we stock up on the local?
I've got one left.
I have. There was 16. So I'm gathering we bought 20 and used 4. So there is a few doses floating.
Oh, Malcolm's a dealer, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's the old Dobie dealer. Is the contact.
Dobie man.
Hook you up with some of that Dobie. Get me some of that old D, man.
Yeah, I mean, if we're resting up, then it might be worth.
Yeah, you get some of that vitamin D.
That's it. Okay, so you guys know how this works. When you're vexed by a problem, you can sit down, get out your pipe, spend an hour or so in quiet contemplation. You're resting anyway, so that's fine. If the hour passes undisturbed, which it largely will, bit of background noise, people coming and throwing, but no one's really bothering you. One of you gets to make an intelligence check. If several of you are smoking together, the most intelligent character can make the intelligence check, and you get a bonus of 1 per companion up to a maximum of 4. If it's obviously, you have to tell me what you're pondering. If you succeed on the intelligence check, you get a clue about the matter you're contemplating. But obviously, anyone who's participating will also require at least a single plug of whatever pipe weed is your particular preference.
So what would the question be, or what would we, what happened over the last 2 days, or
how to get to
where to find the sword, or
I think probably when it comes down to it, we probably want to know how to get at the sword, which we know is maybe not a simple thing, because we do know that it's kind of dispersed. It's sort of like the essence is somehow maintaining this place anyway. So I think that's the ultimate goal, but it would be cool to know what happened.
Yeah. And I mean, have you spoken to your companion recently? Would he be able to shed any light on this? This probably wouldn't be Brock's suggestion, but
yeah, no, that's something that I don't think Weimar has figured out yet, because there's been things going on. But yeah, that's something we can do.
He might not have been affected in the same way and was just like carried along. He might have been aware of his surroundings and what was going on.
Usually that is entirely the case. The sword seems to be fairly well isolated by its existence as a sword.
But I don't know if he would have like chirped up when he realised that you were wondering, or if you need to sort of prompt him.
It's not spoken up yet.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, and when it wants to, when it feels like there's cause, it will. So I guess like whatever, and this is like sort of switching back between us and the characters, I guess. But it has jumped up in the past when it's felt the need. So
Yeah, like I say,
hasn't
Brock
so far.
wouldn't suggest it to you, so it was more out of character. I was just
Yeah, and it's something that like Weimar is going to get around to eventually, like when he's done being tattooed and smoking the Dobie and
okay. Well, let's
having
crack on with that
a
then.
good Friday evening.
Okay, so who's partaking in the old Dobie?
Yeah, let's all go for it and get the maximum bonus.
Yeah, I think we're all gonna
Okay,
get our vitamins.
that'll
on.
cost you 4 plugs of old Dobie, and whoever makes the intelligence check, effectively you'll get like a -3 bonus to it, because obviously you're trying to roll below your intelligence. So it's down to you guys. Who's the person going to make the roll?
I don't know who normally does it.
I
Or
think
it's the person with the highest intelligence, which
Yeah,
I think
I've
is
done it.
Weimar.
I've got 15.
Yeah,
Okay.
now that we have Quentin, we probably need to switch up because
Yeah,
I've
it's
been
not
doing
me.
it a couple of times. But yeah, Quentin's.
Well, it's definitely not me. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so
Yeah, no, Quentin.
cross off your 4 old Dobie, and Quentin, make me an intelligence check with a -3 bonus.
You know.
oh, that is.
That's
so
gone horribly
unfortunate.
wrong here.
Oh, that's added to 3, right?
No, it's minus.
Yeah.
That's
So
minus.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's still divided. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you don't get nothing because you've been sat around for an hour like chatting about it. You don't get like a massive clue, but it does occur to you that if, as Malcolm was sort of suggesting earlier, you travelled down this road to this place you're in now from the ruins, then maybe someone like local might have seen you on the road, like travelling in. Like, if you travel down the road to this place and then suddenly you're like, Shazam, I've lost my memory. Someone might have seen you on the road, so you might at least get a clue of like, did you actually come down the road or not? But beyond that, you're at a bit of a loss, despite the old Dobie.
So the best we can hope for then is finding if that road is used, and if anybody saw us travelling it. That would mean we've not come out of a portal or doorway type scenario. I mean, the wounds themselves as well, they're fairly light, aren't they?
Yeah, they're just like little bruises and like.
So it's almost like we've either gone through a lot of thicket, or when you run really fast and you can feel the wind in your face, and you do it at the beach, you get the sand as well, and it's kind of like sand papers your face. Could we have gone ridiculously fast?
As you're all contemplating this, like the door to the inn opens, and again like a fairly sort of like buff-looking guy comes walking in. He's got like a big wooden oar like over his shoulder that he like leans up against the wall as he comes in. Obviously the goat man's now like back behind the bar, and he's like, right, let's get a round in for everybody, shall we? I'm feeling a little bit flush. And the goatman's like, oh, yeah, you've done some good passage, have you, Rem? And he's like, oh yeah, few likely fellas took them across on the barge over the lake earlier on, paid me quite handsomely. They did. He's like, come on, drinks are on me, and like everyone's like, oh yeah, nice one. Like, people are like getting up and like getting the drinks and whatever. The goatman's like pouring drinks out for people.
So he's like a ferryman, did he say?
That's what he seemed to be suggesting.
Yeah. Well, go to the bar and see if I can wangle a free drink. Seems everyone else is getting in.
Yeah, you walk up
Get
to
in
the
the queue.
bar. you stand behind the fellow. He's just finished talking to someone, and he turns around and he sort of sees you, and he's like, "Oh, hello again."
Did we meet on the way in?
No, he's like I say, he's just literally walked in.
No. I mean, he said, "Oh, hello again."
Yeah.
And I said, so did we meet earlier? I sort of questioned him.
He sort of said, listen to this joker here. He like turns back to the goat man, and he's like, oh, this is one of the fellas I ferried across the lake I was telling you about. Took him right across to the West Bank. I did.
The West Bank. You took us to the West Bank, or you took us from the West Bank?
Oh, I took you from the East Bank over to the West Bank, and then I went back again.
So, from this sort of map of the area, where are we now then? We're on the West Bank, by the sounds of it.
Well, technically, you're on the East Bank, because like this sort of area is the East Bank is obviously over on the east, but you're sort of like at the top of the lake now.
Right.
And he seems to be suggesting that he met you sort of further south on the east side,
just
and then
travelled
took you
across the
west
lake.
side. So perhaps instead of coming up the road, you actually went across the lake and then like up the other side to the top.
And now you mention it. What was the name of the place you took us from?
He says, "Oh, it was just near Prigmanning Hill, about a couple of days south of here, just near that, just near them old ruins."
Yes, yeah,
Says,
I do
yeah.
remember the Abbey. You mean?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he says, yeah, you said you wanted to get over to the western side of the lake. Said you were like looking for something. I didn't ask you what. I don't want a price. You paid the price for the barge. I took you across. Obviously, we had to travel a bit north. We don't cross over the widest part of the lake. You know, it can get a bit choppy on there. But I took you across one of the narrower parts. Said our farewells. You paid me, and I went back about my business. I didn't expect to see you here in near Fort Vulgar. To be honest, I don't mean to sound. Don't mean to disparage you or nothing, big fella. But well, I don't normally get that much money to like ferrying like a big party of people across. So I thought, you know what, whilst my luck was holding, I'd come up here, get a few drinks in for my mates here, and then get back to the business. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little worse for wear, to be honest. So I don't have a great.
He says, you fair got the look of the chuck about you now.
Well, yeah. I've been looking after my wife. She was suffering.
He says, "Oh, that lass that you crossed over with the in the boat. Are you married? Are you?"
Yeah.
He says, "Well, you're a lucky fella." He says, "Oh, if I was a few years younger and obviously you weren't built like a mountain. No offence."
Yeah, I'll give him a bit of a.
And he like gets you a drink in while you're chatting.
Give him a bit of an evil eye on that statement, but he seems to be giving us information. Yeah. And the brother, he's also suffering.
He says, "Oh yeah, the fellow in the friar, yeah. Is he? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that."
I don't remember. Was he that bad when we set off on the journey?
No, seemed fine when I took you across the lake. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I don't mean to speak ill of people, but like he looked a bit nervy and like he kept like glancing around, like he was like on edge and whatever. But you know, yeah, these priestly types, they're all a bit, you know, bit strange.
Yeah, it's
not
unusual.
Not that I mean any insult by it. I mean, you know, they do their thing.
Yeah, as long as they don't interfere with us, that's their business.
He says, praying's all very well, and you know, if you need a bit of prayer and you need a bit of whatever to get you through, that's absolutely fine. He says, but as long as it doesn't get in the way of making a bit of coin and like getting by, that's fine. You know, people do what they do.
And this guy obviously seems completely unscathed, and
Yeah, he's up. I mean, he looks like he's got a sort of like manual. You can see like his arms are like, I mean, probably not to your standard, but like compared to a normal person, he's like fairly ripped, which doesn't surprise you because he's like poling a barge or whatever.
yeah.
But and he obviously leads a fairly sort of rough and tumble life. Like he's obviously had a few bumps and scrapes in his time, but he doesn't look like he's been injured recently.
And are any of the other people that travelled with us come to the village here?
He says, "So let me have a look around. Like, while this is going on, where are the rest of you guys located?"
We're at the far end, near the sleeping people on the nearest table,
Yeah.
drinking, eating, trying not to fall asleep.
No problem. So he points towards like the rest of your companions basically, and he's like, "Oh yeah, there they are. Look over there." He says, "There's that." He says, "Again, I don't mean to speak ill of it." And he points at like Malcolm. He's like, that fella there. He was like going on about having like a headache, and his headache getting worse. Like as we were like going across the lake, wouldn't stop going on about it. But you know, he says, "Well, you paid your fare, and I can put up with listening to someone complain for a bit. It's fine."
And I sort of point to everyone of our group, and I said, "Was there anyone else?"
He's like, "No, that's it." He says, that fellow over there. And he points at Weimar. He's like, he was all like muttering under his breath, like as we were going across. So again, I don't mean to like speak ill of anyone, but I think I saw him talking to like my spare oar while I was like taking you across. But like I say, you paid your fare. I don't want to say anything about it. You know, you do what you do. Didn't cause me no harm.
Yeah, he's been under a bit of pressure lately.
Wow. Says, well, that, again, don't mean to sound rude, but it's like, your business is your business. It's fine. I don't need to know what I don't need to know.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be somewhat of a gap in my memory. So,
At
this
which
is
point
all,
his eyes narrow and he's like, "Oh, is that right? Is it?" And he turns back to the barman and he says, "What did I tell you? I knew he had the look of the chuck about him." And the barman's like, "Yeah.
the look of the chuck.
Yeah." He says, "Right, I grew up around these parts now. Don't get me wrong, everyone around here is a fisherman. They've got their own boats and whatever. So I got it into my mind like a few years ago that I was going to like set myself up a little place just to the south there along the road. And I was going to, because I've got my own boat. It's quite nice if I do say so myself. Well, you know, obviously. But I thought, you know, I can make a bit of extra money. Like, so obviously the fishing's still all right down there, but I can make a bit of extra money by using my boat to like ferry people across the lake if they don't want to go all the way up the road and all the way around it or all down the bottom. So it's a bit, the forest gets a bit swampy down the bottom. So some people don't want to travel around that. It takes a long time. Where I can charge a modest fee to like take people across the narrowest part of the lake. Everyone's a winner." And it's like, well, you must have heard the legends of like Big Chuck. You know,
Yeah,
that sea
friends,
monster
yeah.
that all the oldsters are on about. That
Yes,
no
my friends
one's
have said.
seen ever.
I said, "Do you mind just coming over to? I'll just
of
show
course
you
not.
something." I just wanted to escort him over to show him, like, brother lying on the floor there.
He's like, "Oh, what do you... Well, since you're responsible for my good fortune, what do your friends want to drink? I'll get them some drinks and then we can take them over."
Yeah, well, I'll grab what I would expect them to want,
Yeah,
ales or wines or whatever.
Yeah, you grab like a handful of drinks and they're sort of bought over. He obviously pays for them. So you guys, after you've been like talking and whatever, you see Brock come over with this like bargeman with him. He walks over, follows you over. Brock.
And I just before I introduce him to the others, I'll say just before we arrived at the village here,
All right.
something happened to our young brother here. Was he in this state when he was on your boat?
He
Because
says,
I don't remember this.
He says, "Oh no," he says, "definitely not. He looked fine. Like I said, a bit nervy, but fine." Then he sort of like tucks under his breath. He's like, "Oh, that's a bad case. I've never seen anyone as bad as that."
A bad case? A bad case of what?
He says,
May I
"Well, I was
ask?
just about to tell you before you asked me to come over here. Like I say, when I was saying like the look of the chuck, like, every now and then, not often, but every now and again, some cove would like stroll up into the village or the docks, like not having a clue of how they got there. And well, the old folk around here, with all the legends of Big Chuck and whatever, they called it like they're also got this confused look on their face. They come in and they called it the look of the Chuck, because they're like, oh, they must have seen like Big Chuck, and it's like befuddled them. Probably not. It's a legend. Like I say, no one's ever seen this thing, but it's just a saying, you know. It's what people call it. And every now and again, when one of them turns up, they look like they've taken a bit of a beating, but they can never remember how they got it. But I ain't never seen no one as bad as that.
And you dropped us off, and it was just in the docks there.
Well, there ain't no docks on the west side of the lake. It's all woods and whatnot, like a short distance from the lake. So I just dropped you off on the shore and said our farewells, and I headed back to the east side. You know?
So he sort of gives us a rough description of, where he dropped us off. Was that where our memory sort of came in, or was there a bit of a gap there?
From what he said, I mean, you don't remember him taking you across the lake, but from what he said, it sounds like you were sort of heading deeper into this area where you believed the sword might have been.
Yeah.
And you were like, right, we need to get across this lake to keep going west. And you bumped into this guy and paid him, and he took you over the lake.
Where he sort of dropped us off and where our memory sort of started again, is there a bit of a gap there?
Yeah.
From his sort of description?
There is, yeah. He said he dropped you off on the west side of the lake, and you were basically at like the northern tip of the lake.
So we travelled round.
Yeah. So it sounds to you like you've basically got the boat west across the lake, then you've travelled north up to the top of the lake, and then your memory's kicked in, and you've been like, oh, there's a fort there. We need to get some help.
Okay. So there is a bit of a...
Yeah, there's a gap.
That we've travelled through. Okay. I'll introduce my companions.
You
put down the drinks.
You make to introduce yourself, and he's like, "Oh, it's all right. I know you all are." And he's like, "Oh, nice to see you all again. Hope the area is not treating you too bad." And again, he sort of like jingles his like now less full pouch. He's been buying drinks for people. He's like, "Thanks again, much appreciated."
And tell me, Master Ferryman.
Oh, he's like, "Oh, no need for ceremony." He's like, "Rem will do."
Yeah, Rem. How long is it since you dropped us on the west coast?
He says, "Oh, let's see. Oh, must be 4 days gone."
Okay. And you met us at Primmin Hill?
Yeah, Prigmarin Hill. It's if you took the road out of here and you carried on south, it'd take you about 2 days to get to it.
Okay.
Give or take.
4 days.
Was there a wood or something on the west side of the lake? Or was it fairly?
He's like, yeah. He's like, there's a little bit of scrap of ground that's like clear as you get near to the shore of the lake. But then once you get a little bit beyond that, it's all woodland again, like most around here. Well, that's why they call it the Tolman Wood. And he sort of laughs at his own joke, like has a little chuckle to himself.
That's where we've been travelling through, the Tolman Wood. What the sounds of it.
He says, well, it depends who you speak to. The younger folk call it the Dolman Wood, the older folk call it the Tolman Wood.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. It's all a big bloody wood, isn't it?
It is a big wood. Full of weird and wonderful things.
And he's like, oh yeah, can be dangerous if you don't know what you're looking for. Like I said, I think that's why most people stick to just like using the roads and whatnot, you know. I mean, I'm not saying they're safe, but they're safer. Especially as you get further north, you know. When you start getting near to the Nagwood, or get a bit hairy up there.
And do you think you'd find the location you dropped us off again?
He says, yeah. Easy. Well, like I say, I met you. I actually had some business a bit further south. I was actually travelling back to where my hut is when I met you at Prigmarin Hill. So we were sort of roughly like between Prigmarin Hill and Fort Volga is where I like stake my claim, and we travelled for there. Like I say, sort of westwards across the lake. I could easily take you back there. That's not a problem. He says,
Yeah,
well, to be honest, once I bought up some drinks here, maybe had a bit of a night's rest. I was planning on heading back in the morning anyway. You know, I've got a business to run.
Yeah. Perhaps in a day or two, we need to wait for our friends to recover.
Yeah. Well, if you, like I said, I'll probably be leaving in the morning. But if you just follow the road out of Fort Volga, keep going, keep following the road for about a day, you'll see my house. Well, you know where my house is, but you'll see my house.
Right.
So it hasn't really helped with the mystery other than we went across the lake.
He says, well, if you don't need me for anything more, fellas, I'm going to have one last drink. I'm going to go and say my respects and my prayers up at the chapel, and then I'm probably going to come back here, bed down for the night, and then head off in the morning. You know, I don't, and obviously we're sort of getting into like mid-afternoon now. I don't really like travelling when it's dark. You know, the woods can get a bit dangerous, so I'm probably going to head back in at first thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your
Oh,
service.
No. And he sort of like taps his coin pouch again. Oh, no, thank you. And like as he sort of walks away, like to get his other drink, like a load of the locals are like patting him on the back because he's bought them all drinks. He heads out, goes to the church. A few hours later, he'll return and he basically just beds down for the night. But unless you guys want him for anything else, he'll just sort of like leave you be. He's got his own stuff to deal with. So.
Yeah, so whatever's happened to us between, the west side of the lake and travelling up to here. Or he's lying to us, which seems unlikely. But... So does that mean what we're after is on the west side of the lake?
And just to give you guys more of an idea of like what he was talking about, I'm just going to move you back to the Dolmen Wood map briefly. So I can sort of ping it a little bit and show you guys what he was talking about.
Mm.
So I'm hoping you guys can all see the map. So basically he seemed to be saying that sort of his house was somewhere sort of here, where I've pinged on the map, and he was basically saying that he sort of took you across the lake here to this side of the lake.
So we've probably crossed over that where the river is, I guess.
I mean, it sounds like from what he was saying, assuming he's telling the truth, you guys pretty much came up here from the old Abbey ruins, and when you were at Prigmarine Hill, which is here, you met up with him. You then travelled with him to here, where his house was and his business is. Then he sort of ferried you across the lake here.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow or other you've then gone from there up round the lake.
Across the river. Or...
So round the lake to the north point to Fort Volga.
Hmm. And that's all wood down that side, isn't it? That's just
as far as
one
you're
big
aware,
wood, yeah.
Right, so unless anyone has anything they want further from this map, I'll move us back to the Fort Volga map.
No, that's fine. So I think there could be some... Well, I think we might be right in the fact that someone didn't want us hanging around there because there was something there that they didn't want us to know about.
Yeah, Big Chuck.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
As you say, Big Chuck, a few of the locals are like, "Hey, Big Chuck."
I mean...
And you see a couple of guys like sort of like showing off their like tattoos. And
Big Chuck. Do they have Big Chuck tattoos? Like, what does it look like?
Well, it seems to be the black tentacle tattoos.
Oh yeah. So it's just literally the okay. Yeah. So it's not like an ogre man
No.
at a club or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so this I mean, this chuck could be just something completely different.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So are we? I don't know that we'll find what we were looking for there, but it seems significant either way.
But the problem is going back there. How do we know it's not going to happen again? I guess is the issue, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could travel in 2 groups or something, one ahead of the other, or
So get 2 boats and watch the proceedings from one of them.
yeah, or something, or even go on foot and just travel far enough apart that at some point, if something happened, we'd see it happen and maybe be able to react to it. But that's putting people in danger potentially.
Our goods and equipment seem to be intact, so I'm wondering, would we keep a record as we went through, and might that record be would be intact if we did come back, rather than splitting up, and at least
It's just whether we're sort of conscious enough of what we're doing to leave a path or note it down, or
but I think if we land where we landed and follow the tracks that we made 4 days ago, then, and if we track our progress in a journal as we kind of go through, because either something happened immediately and we've lost 4 days as we were being magicked, or we traveled 4 days and then something happened and it just kind of magicked us. So even going again and finding out which of those 2 it is potentially valuable.
The other interesting thing is we lost our memory as soon as we left the Abbey. So we lost it before we'd even got to Rem and got on the boat and crossed the lake. So it's not necessarily connected to the woods on the west side of the lake or the lake. It's connected to Rem, is at the moment in Brock's eyes. It's all connected to when we met him, which was just outside the Abbey, or that's sort of what he's saying. So it don't seem to be the lake necessarily, and it don't seem to be the woods on the other side of the lake, because we got no memory of any of that, unless when you get to a certain point it goes, right, wipe the last 4 days of your memory, or I don't know. But obviously Brock is not happy about it in any shape or form, as you'd expect, but he'd like to get to the bottom of it. So do we go back to where we met Rem and try and piece it together, or are we just going to push on once we've rested up, etc.?
I think we should go on to the west coast and follow the tracks.
Go in reverse.
Yeah. Find the most recent point we can find before we got magicked and see what's there.
Okay,
Go
so
backwards.
So it sounds to me, guys, like you're all agreed on the fact you all want to rest up for the evening before you do anything.
Oh yeah.
So that's not a problem. We'll skip to the next morning. You guys all rest up. Anyone who's down hit points, you can recover D3 hit points. You don't have to cross off any rations because you've ate in the tavern, etc. I'm going to say cross off 5 gold for the various bits and pieces you bought. It's not a very expensive or fancy tavern. It's just like ale and like bread and cheese.
Ale and tattoos.
Yep. Well, to be honest, even the black tentacle tattoos, even they're free. And the lodgings, as long as you don't mind just dossing down in a corner of a warehouse, is also free.
What sort of hit points is Lan on, John?
Okay, Lan would be on 0 hit points.
So shall I just do D3, shall I?
Yeah, do D3 and she will regain consciousness. And if someone could roll me a D3 for Brother Dunwallow and tell me what they get.
1.
Okay, so we'll be on 1 hit point.
And Lan's on 2.
Okay.
Should we leave the guys here to recover? 4 of us go. with Rem this morning?
I mean, we'll obviously ask them in the morning if they got any memories of what happened over the last few days. Did they remember the journey across the lake, anything like that?
Okay, at this point, Brock, you can make a save versus spells for Lan.
For Lan.
And I will make one for Brother Dunwallow.
Oh.
Okay, so Brother Dunwallow, obviously, he's very injured. He's on like 1 hit point. He's only like slightly conscious, and he's like, he wakes up and immediately he's like, oh, what happened? Like, where am I? And like, he obviously doesn't remember anything about what's going on. Whereas Lan sort of wakes. I mean, she's still quite rough. I mean, again, she's sort of like, she's obviously a bit tougher than Brother Dunwallow, but she's still not in the full blush of health. But as she sort of like wakes up and her eyes open, like one of her eyes is like quite badly blackened and bruised, she's like, oh good, we managed to get away. Oh, thank goodness. I thought that was the end of all of us. She sort of like reaches up and like almost like tenderly, but her hand's shaking a bit 'cause she's still quite weak, like touches the side of your face, Brock, and then says, it hit me, and I think I must have, to my shame, I must have passed out. How did we get away?
Well, I'll obviously embrace her, and you know.
She sort of like, she tries to hug you hug her like a little bit too hard, and she's like, but
yeah,
it doesn't hurt her.
I sort of lay her and comfort her, and make her comfortable. And I say the strangest thing, none of our group can remember any of the past, well, 3-4 days, however long it's been since we met the man who ferried us across the lake.
What, Lazar?
Lazar?
No, Rem Lazar.
Oh, Rem, yes. Yes, he took us across the lake, I believe.
Yes, yes, that's right. He had like a boat of some kind. Well, he called it a barge. It looked like a rowboat to me, but yes, he ferried. And then she suddenly, like, her eyes widen as though she suddenly remembers something. She's like, "Did any of you manage to get the sword?"
No, like I say, we have no recognition of this boat or any of our travels over the last few days. I remember sort of coming to with you in my arms just outside this village where we are now. Not remembering any of the
Well, that makes
journey.
sense. When I was struck, the last thing I remember seeing before I lost consciousness was you running towards me as I was falling towards the ground.
So what was this that struck you? What happened?
As best I can remember, and it's all a little bit jumbled up. Like I said, I took a knock to the head. After Ram had taken us across the lake to the west, we continued into the thick woodlands. They seemed to get thicker the further west we went, and then we entered this strange sort of area. Everything was very quiet and very still. There was no wind. We couldn't hear any birds or anything. And I remember you saying that you didn't like it. You thought there was some sort of evil magic at work. It just seemed unnaturally still and quiet. And then we found this great hill, and there was this big circle of moss-covered stones, and at the centre of it there was this huge stone monolith, and stuck in the top of it was this great sword. Its blade, the deepest green I have ever seen. When we were about to enter the circle of stones to move towards it, a loud voice challenged us, and then it was though the very rocks, the moss-covered rocks, rose up from the ground, joining themselves together into this great stone behemoth that set about us all the time, screaming in this voice that seemed to come from the very ground itself, telling us to be gone from the clearing. And I remember seeing it hit. It hit the priest, and just the once, and he fell to the ground like a sack of discarded rags. And obviously we tried to defend ourselves, and I don't really know what happened next. It struck me, like I say, aside the head, and as I fell to the ground, I saw you running towards me, and then the next I know, I was here.
Well, I'll make sure she's got something to eat and drink, and again,
tell me, is Malcolm all right?
Well, everyone's here, and I'll sort of gesture them over if they're not already sort of nearby, listening to
She says,
what happened.
Oh, good. As we were travelling across the lake, Malcolm was saying that he had this great pressure or like pounding in his head, and as we went westwards, it seemed to be getting worse and worse, and to the point where it was, he was coping admirably with it, but it was obviously causing him a lot of pain. And as we got into the stone circle, well, it was, you could just tell he looked pale. You could tell by the look on his face that he was in great pain, even though he was trying not to show it, and he was not letting it interfere with what he was doing. But it was obviously causing him a great deal of pain.
I have no memory of that.
And you're free of it now.
Yes.
I remember you saying it. Well, when you first mentioned it, you said it started like a sort of pressure in your ears, and then it seemed to get worse, and it became this pounding pain in your head. You said it was almost like someone was like drumming on your skull.
I do feel the pressure in my ears still.
I mean, I don't know where we are, but it seemed to me, and obviously neither myself or Brock have any truck with any of this sort of foul magic. It seemed to me that the nearer we got towards this great stone, the worse the pain in your head became. That's why I asked Brock how you were, and I'm glad to see you're here. I was worried at one point that the pain was going to become so great that it was going to incapacitate you. But compliments don't come easy to ice walkers. We see them as a tool of the more civilized folk. If someone is doing well in our society, it is obvious. You do not need to constantly tell them. But I will say that you handled your discomfort well.
Thank you.
She nods, but then she's been sort of like half sat up, like propping herself with her arm, but she sort of like lowers herself back down, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, my head's still swimming." And you see that she's trying to like open her left eye, but it's all like swollen shut and like black.
I think you should, rest. Don't worry yourself. We're safe here, and I'll try and give her some water and
Thank you.
make her comfortable.
Yes, I think the priest, he's all right.
He's worse for wear, but he's alive. That's the main thing.
Good. And her voice sort of trails off as she like lapses into sleep as she's sort of talking. And after a while, you can see her chest sort of rising or falling rhythmically. She's obviously fallen asleep.
Yeah, I'll cover her up and make her comfortable once again, and turn to the rest of the group. So, obviously, we have some pieces of the jigsaw. We did find the sword, it seems, and it looks like Malcolm is the key to finding it once again. And unfortunately, it doesn't sound like a very comfortable way to find it.
At which point, Weimar, your sun sword, pipes up, obviously speaking through you as it normally does, and says, "Well, I wasn't going to say anything to all of you for fear it might put you at risk again, and obviously I wouldn't say anything that would put the life of my wielder in danger, knowingly. But yes, I can confirm that you what the young lady says is true. You did you did locate my brother Blade in the rock, as she said, and this presence, I believe, was able to create itself a body from the rocks that were about. I believe it to be perhaps a similar creature to the Ardrun that you spoke to, the one who made his face out of the rock. Whereas this one seemed to be in the plant life and the moss of the particular of the clearing. But when you entered, it was immediately hostile, and it created for itself this giant behemoth body from the very stones of the circle. And wow, you need only look at young Dunswallow there to see what effect this great behemoth had.
Would you speak to your brother?
Alas, no. Before we could get near enough for any of you to lay hands, or indeed for my wielder to bring me into close proximity, the behemoth, the stone thing, laid about us, and obviously fearing for your woman and for the young priest as well as yourselves, the decision was made to withdraw. You, in your talkings with the bargeman, when he brought you across, you'd found out that there was this place to the northern side of the lake. You decided to head for there, and when you got a day or two beyond where we'd found the blade, you all seemed to lose memory of what had occurred. As I say, I was not going to mention it because I would not willingly see my wielder go back there and be killed by this thing, but since you already know about it, the young woman has remembered it. I see little to be gained now in keeping silent. The best I can do is try and give you what information I have so that you're better prepared, since I assume, like the young heroic fools you are, you'll be wanting to go back there.
Speaking of which, I think we should go back there.
Yes, I bloody well thought so.
Told you it was easy.
Well, we came all this way. Shame to go home without it.
He says, well, yes, well, I'm more concerned with making sure you get home at all.
So, how would we go about getting past this guardian or whatever creature?
He says, well, all I can tell you is that the very instant you entered this smaller circle of stones around the larger monolith, this loud voice called out, challenged you upon pain of death to leave the area, and when one of you set foot inside, I won't say who, the stones were animated and began to attack you all. Now, of course, in the hands of my wielder, I did my best to help stave the thing's attention off, but it was a huge thing, and even the sharpness of my blade seemed to merely nick a few pieces of stone, a few fragments chipped from it that seemed barely to affect it at all.
And Weimar, did you have a similar situation when you picked up this cursed item you carry with you?
Cursed item?
Unlucky.
You mean the sword?
You seem to carry it and interact with it without any problems.
Oh yes.
Are you blessed in some way?
I think it's something that maybe there's a degree of, to my knowledge anyway, there's only two people that we know of that have actively tried touching the sword. Me, obviously, and our good friend, currently tending to the business of his people elsewhere, who is, shall we say, a little bit more acerbic in nature.
At which point the sword puts in and says, well, look, let me explain, and I'll try and use simple words.
Here we go.
The way
in between.
Yeah, the way it works is each of myself and my sibling blades, we are each linked with one of the fundamental forces of this world. That is our nature. We can't change it. It's simply what we are. Now, when those who attempt to pick us up, like that short fellow you used to knock around with, when those try and pick us up and their nature does not match our own, it causes them problems and pain. I can't do anything about it. I can't switch it off. It's simply who I am. In the same way my, shall we say, darker sibling blade, if someone who was more inherently good attempted to pick that blade up, it would react as aversely because the two natures clash.
So maybe the person who needs to retrieve this sword has to be of the right nature or whatever you
I've touched that sun sword and it hurt.
Right. So I guess I do enjoy the sun. I've always had the coast is very sunny. Anyone feel any particular alignment towards shall we say islands or lakes?
You see, with my current wielder, you believe strongly in a sense of order, and that there is a natural flow to things and a natural way things work. With the night blade, as you call it, people who tend to be aspected towards that tend to believe that more in the randomness and the chaotic nature of the world, and they strive to impose their own will upon the fabric of the world, bending it and twisting it to meet their own will. Whereas the Greensteel is more aligned with a force of balance, or I suppose you might say neutrality, if you will.
How do
Okay,
we...
so does your sword know who could wield that green sword?
Do you know? I say with my own voice. How can I tell? How can we tell who could pick up the Greensteel without being turned into a frog or something?
You wouldn't get transfigured or anything like that, but anyone whose nature conflicted with the blade or attempted to wield it would feel pain.
So put your hand on it. If it doesn't hurt, that's okay.
Yes.
Same as with you.
Yes.
And this sounds super weird because I'm doing both voices, right? I'm doing my own voice. Like,
Yeah.
this is right. Yes. Okay. Well, that sounds simple.
So
It is.
we've got to deal with the stone things whilst people take it in turns to touch the green blade.
But what I'm saying is, would the right person, be able to enter the circle and retrieve the blade without setting off this guardian?
Well, I don't believe the guardian is actually linked to the power of the blade. I believe that the guardian is perhaps one of these Droon, these Aldroon, who is, well, the last one you met said that there was a guardian for each of the monoliths. I assuming that this is perhaps the guardian of that monolith. I don't think it's actually linked to the blade.
Right. So we need to distract it long enough for the right person to retrieve. But you don't know who the right person is, Weimar, because I'm talking to Weimar because I still don't understand this stupid magic.
No, and I don't think it's... There's nothing that we can do at any rate, because when we first happened upon this one, it was just happenstance that the closest one of us happened to be someone who got really hurt when they touched the handle.
Well, there is one simple test. It's not particularly pleasant, though. Obviously, my current wielder would not be able to pick it up because their nature is aligned with mine, and my nature is not that of the green blade.
Oh, that's right. So not me, then.
The easiest way to test, although it would be painful, would be for each of you in turn, if my wielder agrees to lay me down, for each of you in turn to attempt to wield me. If you can without pain, then you would not be able to wield the Greensteel.
I'll just, swing. I'll stick it in the ground.
Yeah. I've
Which you
already
wouldn't do.
touched it and it hurt.
I've touched it and it really hurt.
Brock, do you want to give it a? You don't have to, because
No,
I've seen.
I don't.
Brock's like, nah, mate.
I'm good.
No.
I'm good.
I've seen what it's done to you.
It doesn't hurt though.
I'd rather be destroying the thing than picking it up, but I do understand that we're in
Well,
fairly grave situation.
Anyone who cannot wield me would either have a nature more aligned with the Nightblade or with the Greensteel. Now that's down to yourselves. You should know that yourselves.
That's everyone then. So, who do we know that Malcolm? Did you touch it when we were there?
Yes.
And it wasn't good.
No, it wasn't good.
So,
You may not remember because you were unconscious after cutting your leg off.
No, I mean the if we
The green
indeed happened upon the green blade.
No,
Oh, yes.
the sword said earlier that like none of you actually managed to lay down.
Yeah, because I guess I was sort of mixing up the connection that like Malcolm came away with like massive headache and stuff.
Well, I vote that I touched that sword last,
Okay.
which is bizarre because I'm probably the most skilled to go and get the bloody thing.
What is
Does
the...
wrapping it in cloth and touching it help? Does that negate the pain?
Yeah, should be fine with that as long as you didn't try and wield it.
Yeah, just don't go stabbing people.
So
I don't
anyone
intend
could
to
grab
touch
it.
anybody
then.
with a
Yeah.
fucking thing.
So I'll take off the belt and I'll hand its scabbard first to Malcolm.
I'll take it.
Just
Yep.
grab it.
You hold the scabbard. It's fine.
Wonderful. I'll put it back. Okay, so we let's get some cloth. So we can whoever grabs it can use cloth to grab it.
Okay.
And then we'll worry about the pain later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to laugh so much, though, if it turns out only Brock can hold that sword.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to find that out. So
I was going to say, yeah, you ain't going to find that out.
I am.
Yeah,
well,
when you're asleep.
not while he's conscious and you're
Yeah, it's
conscious.
just like touch it with the very tip. It's like on the toes.
Well, it's more of a wielding it or picking it up, isn't it?
Yeah,
Rather than just touching it against
Using it.
you. Yeah.
No, it's
Put it in his
definitely
hand and throw a
touching
bucket of water on him. See what happens.
Yeah, if you sort of like laid that next to him and then like slapped him around the face and he immediately just like grabbed it up and was like, "Rrr," that counts as him wielding it. But
Oh boy. Yeah, talk about pranks, right?
Yeah, that could turn ugly quite quick.
But anyway, it's okay. So how do we go about this? We know that there's probably
So let me call on my elf friend and see if maybe she can't shed some light on how we might defeat
Well, that's
this creature.
this is still the weird thing regarding this situation. What was this headache? Is that because you are the natural person to wield this weapon and they're trying to drive you away? Why what are these headaches? Why only you were affected by these headaches? Is this Fae or something you say of trying to keep you away, or
Yeah, I
Groom
don't
trying to keep you
know.
away, or someone trying to keep you away because you're the most obvious person to wield this weapon? Possibly.
The previous Droon wasn't offended by my presence.
But you weren't by the sword at that point, I guess.
No.
It's just as you get closer to the sword, you seem to have some, reaction, negative reaction to it. So that seems to be a bit of a coincidence, don't you think?
Yeah, that would worry me somewhat. But at least we know we'll be able to find it.
But by all means, contact your creature of the wood.
Sword,
Yes.
sword. Who entered the circle first?
well, I don't really like to say. I
Well,
don't
if you
know.
could, that'd be helpful.
Okay. At which point can you roll me a d6, Quentin?
Or
it was you.
of course it was.
You had some idea that you were going to sort of like sneak in around the outskirts using the shadows of the stones. But
Yep.
like I say, the instant you passed the threshold, it was like this entity, this Aldrun, if that's what it is, was somehow aware of you.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And did
I can
he
think
set
of
his
several reasons why, but yeah.
did he set his foot down, or was it as soon as he crossed the threshold without putting a foot down?
Well, I believe he set his foot down. He didn't float or anything like that.
Because I
Fucking
wonder
hope
if he
not.
did float.
Well, I don't know. That's a little bit beyond my remit, I'm afraid.
Hmm.
I'm a holy weapon of light, not a flying carpet salesman.
True. And
I
was
think that Malcolm should try crossing the threshold. Because it didn't like me, so we can rule one out, can't we?
Well, we'd be prepared to, We'll have plan B to while
we
it's
might be better off
distracted.
attacking it with hammers than swords.
Yeah, while it's distracted, at least someone can grab it. If there's enough of us, hopefully someone will be able to get to it, and then we can retreat as we've done previously.
happy to give it a go.
I feel
No,
we've
I
got
think-
no choice.
I think it's either Brock or Malcolm, because I've crossed it, it went bad. I think if Weimar crosses it, it's going to go bad.
Probably.
I mean, I'm happy to try and retrieve it, but I will not wield that thing.
So how about we try this? We get there. We have Malcolm cross the threshold first. See what happens.
Ahead of
then-
us. And then Brock
Yeah.
behind that, then you, then
Yeah.
me.
If the sword is correct and it's not related to, it's just the presence of someone trying to take the sword.
I'm just thinking if it's
yeah.
people more inclined to be
Yeah, I understand.
neutral.
It's worth a try, but if the sword's correct, it may not be linked to that, and it may be just a guardian of the sword and
Yeah.
the stone,
Yeah, could be.
the circle.
Yeah.
My
we
own
don't
sort of
know enough.
thinking here is that Brock and Malcolm, you're fairly nature reliant people. Yeah. So
Yeah.
because of that, you may have a better chance at being able to get over that threshold.
Well, it's certainly worth a try. But
Because I can't see it attacking other Droon. And they're fairly nature reliant people.
Yeah, one of them was a tree, an
Oh.
actual tree.
There you go.
but
So-
if Malcolm wants to ask the Fae, maybe they'd be able to shed some light on it.
Yeah. Let me
As a-
go off into the woods to call. Sorry, I can't find my notes. I don't remember what she's called, John, but I do know that I
Snowblight Winterfrost.
Snowblight Winterfrost.
That's not an evil sounding name at all.
No, not at all. Good old Winterfrost. There's a name you can trust.
I was thinking about Snowblight.
I was call her the Wicked Witch of the West or something.
Okay, so Malcolm, you head off a little distance into the woods. You take out the sort of small, like thin metal snowflake that she gave you, and as per the instructions, you concentrate on it and you think her name, and in your mind's eye, you see an image of this beautiful elven woman that you met previously with the pale skin, the snow sort of themed armor, etc., of brightest silver. However, in your mind's eye, as she appears, like her outline sort of like keeps like flickering and like briefly disappearing and then like reappearing.
Okay.
And that,
Uh,
when she talks eventually, like odd words will be like chopped out, like you sort of almost like you've got like a bad connection, basically.
Okay. So, uh, my lady, I have found a sword some days to the west of here.
Like, what?
Um,
Barely hit.
um, sorry. So I need to. It's guarded by an aldru. Do you know how to fight such a creature?
Where are you calling me from?
Okay.
Bigger problems with the internet, John.
Okay.
Where are you cut from? I can barely hear you.
Fort Vulgar.
What? You're inside the ring of Chell?
North of the lake.
And I'll cut out the choppy speaking just so to make it a bit easier. She says that. Oh, that would explain it. That there is a great. Hold on, I'm trying to make it the link a little stronger, but it will mean I cannot talk for as long. And then a form sort of like stops wavering quite so much, that there's still a bit of flickering, and a voice becomes a little bit louder. There is a great ring of energies around the sword and the stone that we spoke of. That is known as the Ring of Chell. It prevents any of my kind or of the Fae from entering. It is a barrier to us. To be honest, I did not think, being of the blood, you would be able to enter it.
It certainly tried to prevent me.
The Ring of Chell is, and again she fades out and then briefly comes back in. It's like a physical barrier to our kind. We simply cannot enter. That is why we've been unable to the sword ourselves.
Okay. What do you know about the Aldrum?
They are powerful members of that strange cult. Each is the guardian of one of the obelisks.
Can they be defeated?
They can, however, they have strange powers. Many of them have the physical form.
Okay.
So some seem more spirit than man. If you anything else, speak quickly. The connection is weakening.
No. Farewell.
I cannot sustain the effort to, and then she cuts out.
Okay. Okay.
Is Malcolm a half elf, is he?
No.
Oh, he's not. Just wondered if that's why you weren't so badly affected.
So I'll head back. I'll tell everyone what transpired, and I'll ask the sword again if I manage to step into the ring.
Yes.
Okay.
I think this area you talk of, Malcolm, is probably a lot bigger than the circle itself, because you've already started getting this pressure and these headaches before you even got close. So it's probably a bigger area.
And just to remind you, because obviously this time's passed, when you first spoke to Snowfright Winterfrost, she was surprised that you were an elf that wasn't of her kind. Like, she seemed to say that she was from the realm of fairy, effectively, along with her prince, and she was surprised that there were like elves native to like this world.
Okay. Yeah, I guess there's nothing for us to do except travel there tomorrow and see if we aren't more successful second time round.
Okay, so is the plan to go to ram the bargeman and get him to take you across again?
Yeah, and hopefully this time he will take us even higher. Yeah, I mean we have all the pieces, right? Like we know what we did last time, so
Yeah, we probably need to wait an extra day or two for the others to rest up fully, though, don't we? How long is it going to take?
It's probably going to take more than a day.
Yeah, unless we have something to help with that.
The other possibility is, because obviously Lan's recovering a bit quicker than the young brother, because he's like a pasty, like pallid monk who spent all his life in a monastery, and she's like an ice walker warrior woman. So the other possibility, you like basically leave her behind and say, like, "Oh, we'll come back. Can you look after him while we're gone?"
I was going to say that's the other option is they stay behind, or well, at least the brother should definitely stay behind because I don't think he's going to be a massive asset to us. He's going to be a bit of a burden, if anything.
I think Lan should definitely stay behind because you're only going to hate these things more if she gets killed in the process.
Oh yeah, that goes without saying.
Yeah, crossing water both ways with injured people probably not a good idea.
It was only because she seemed to be resistant to this magic that I was thinking about her coming along. Obviously, I don't know that's a saving throw, but I mean,
yeah, of course.
Might not be next time.
She seems to be the only one that's got any recognition of what happened. I'm just worried that we'd be just wandering around for days and days in nowhere, sort of thing. But yeah, if we're up for that, we'll just go as the four of us then.
Cool.
Okay.
And Rem.
Oh yeah, we'll meet him at his house. He said he'd be there tomorrow, didn't he?
Slap a label on for his.
He said he was going back in the morning, so we must just go back with him.
Well, this is the next day now, though, isn't it? He's already left, hasn't he?
No,
he's
this
leaving
is the
this
next morning. Yeah.
Oh, so this is still the morning that he's leaving, sort of thing. All right, well, we might be able to catch him then.
Yeah, that's not a problem. You
Schedule.
You catch up with him. I've just put his hut on the map. You travel sort of southeast for a day along the road until you reach his hut. Obviously, he suggests you wait until the next morning, head out first light. You'll be able to get D3 hit points back, although you will need to use a ration each this time.
Oh, spare.
At which point, as you're travelling, it'll be like, well, there's only 4 of you this time, so it'll only be 20 gold pieces.
No problem.
He's like, oh, thanks very much. He's like, tell you what, you can come again.
Hopefully not.
At which point, the next morning, first light.
This could turn into Groundhog Day.
More like Memento, where every time you get a little bit more information.
Yeah. What was the Tom Cruise one? The sci-fi one. He kept dying and they had to keep coming back.
Oh, yeah. Another one you mean.
Oh, yeah.
So the next morning, he takes you out across the lake, ferries you to the other side. The lake's fairly placid, like I say, like a little bit of low-lying mist. It seems to be absolutely teeming with fish. You can see the little silvery bodies moving around in the water. Nothing untoward happens. No like great tentacled sea beasts come out or anything like that. He ferries you across to the western shore. He says, "Oh, this is where I left you last time." He says, "Well, good luck to you all. Maybe meet you again some point."
Yeah.
And he starts
What would
getting
it
back on his
cost me
boat
to
and
stay
getting his-
here?
He says, well, I wouldn't really like staying here, and I'm potentially losing bits. Tell you what, throws in another 15 gold, and like I'll stay here for a day. That's the best I'm going to do.
That's worth it.
Do we know how far it is? We don't actually know how far it is, do we? In sort of
No, he's just like, oh, this is where I left you.
yeah. But I don't know if it's a
But
day's
did
walk
Lan
from
give
here or
us some indication of how long we travelled for?
She would have said it. She would have told you. She didn't tell you exactly, but she said it was less than a day's travel.
Okay.
So
Stay here
the
for a
same
day.
hex to use map talk.
okay.
He's
Oh,
like,
okay.
How's my headache?
really bad. Like it's got
Okay.
progressively worse as you went across the lake. Like it now feels just like someone's constantly going.
I was going to say, John, I've got obviously barbarian skills that help with cure poison. Would I be able to knock anything up herbs wise that would sort of nullify it a little bit?
I'm going to say, yeah, you. I'm not going to make you make a roll for it. I'm going to say you managed to use some of your herbs just enough to take like the edge off it.
Yeah, I don't expect it.
And
to.
as you're sort of doing that, obviously, like presumably you guys have given Rem the like 15 gold to stay here for a day.
Yeah.
In which point he's like, oh yeah, you did that last time.
All right.
Yeah, you give him these herbs, and it doesn't stop it. It takes the edge off. It's like having a migraine and taking a couple of paracetamol. It doesn't stop it, but it just like dulls it a little bit, a very little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where he's like, right, well, like I say, I'll stay here a day, but no longer. And if anything nasty comes out of the woods, I'm heading off. That's the best I can do for you.
Fair enough.
I ain't staying around here to get killed by no thing.
Right. Well, lead the way, Malcolm.
Um, so I guess we're going to try and follow our tracks. Or did Lan give us instructions, directions?
Does the sword feel it like we're going to?
Do you?
Yes, I can guide you if you're sure that's really what you want. After what happened last time.
Yeah.
Okay, so the sword will be able to guide you. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you all to make a save versus spells now. And this is just to see, like, when you leave this area, will you lose your memory?
Are we talking magic spells?
Yeah.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Are you?
Okay.
Somehow I made it.
Gonna say someone passed there somewhere.
Okay, so when you eventually leave this place, the only one who will retain, like, you will, because obviously Malcolm suggested that he's going to keep a record of it. So you will sort of be able to read that record and have a general sense of what occurred. But the only one who remembers everything will be Weimar. But I'll let you know when that kicks in.
And die Weimar.
If indeed it does. Because, like, depending on what you do, it may not. Okay. So you guys continue traveling, guided by the sword, who's basically, like, giving you directions based on your last sort of movements. Eventually you come across a steep hill that appears to rise up to just below the tops of the trees, and it appears to eventually break out into a sort of clearing, and you can see on the top this 40-foot high stone crag what appear to be a ring of stone dolmens, these standing stones covered in moss, and just beyond them you can see a much larger stone, about 15 foot tall, seemingly made of a dark black basalt stone. And as you sort of enter this area, as described previously, you notice that the sound of birds cracking branches and leaves falling, which is omnipresent in the most of the forest, just fades away entirely. There's like an eerie calm that seems to just hang over this area. Everything seems a little bit still. As you look around, there's no like leaves falling from the trees or birds cawing or anything like that. It's silent.
This is unnatural. This is more witchcraft.
We are looking for a magic sword, my friend.
Oh,
Yeah. I've just repeated what
Malcolm?
happened last time.
Malcolm, Brock, yours.
Okay.
So I suggest we all get some sort of cloth bag or whatever in case the opportunity, comes that one of us can grab it where, me or Malcolm can't, or whatever the situation. So I have something to hand, either a sack or whatever. and maybe come at it from different directions. So, if someone draws the attention to this thing, then maybe someone else can nip in. Only if it doesn't work, what we're going to try. But sort of plan B, as it
Are
were.
there any overarching trees or any?
No, it's a clearing with the stones.
Okay.
I mean, there's some like by the side of the clearing that are quite tall, but I'd say the crag sort of rises above most of them.
Okay, are there any that it doesn't rise above?
Yeah, there's a couple of like older, sort of larger trees that are sort of like on the edge of the clearing that sort of like overlook it.
Okay, so what I'm thinking I'd like to try is to climb up one of the taller trees, and then I want to see if I think I can run and jump onto the top of the crag where I believe the sword is, and failing that, whether I can kind of shoot a rope or try and throw a rope that might land me there. Ultimately, what I want to try and do is not step on the ground.
Okay.
But I don't know how close the trees might get.
That sounds to me like it's a dexterity roll. So make yourself a dexterity roll.
Okay.
As you like shin up one of these big trees, and you're going to try and like leap across onto the.
I'm going to get close to the edge.
And as you get to like your vantage point, you can now actually see the top of this big stone, and you can see this emerald green blade that seems to be like half sticking out of the stone.
Okay. So I have passed that dex check.
Okay. At which point you will leap through the air, sailing gracefully towards the large stone upon which sits the sword. Now, do you remember the end scene from Cabin in the Woods? Like the very end scene?
I don't know Cabin in the Woods, I have to say.
What happens is, as you sail through the air, so in your path, a giant hand made of stone like bursts out of the ground, spraying soil and grass and debris everywhere. So let's say you're sort of sailing through the air and this stone hand goes and it's going to make an attack against you. So let me just type it, it'll be easier. Is a 16 a hit?
No.
Okay, so it bursts out and it's clearly trying to sort of go and squash you. However, even though it's massive, it's moving fairly slowly, presumably because of its scale and the fact that it's made out of stone covered in moss. And as you see, you can't avoid it, but as you hit the stone, you manage to twist mid-air, so your feet hit it first, and before it can go like that, you push off and you sort of roll to the edge of the clearing, just as the fingers of the stone hand go.
Okay.
So you're pretty much back where you were, but you've not taken any harm. And as you land there and you sort of roll to a dramatic stop next to your companions, a loud voice rings out, and it doesn't seem to be coming from the stone hand. It seems to be coming from like everything in the clearing. Weimar, as you sort of encountered the moss that that was being held. As you look around, you can see that like the moss that seems to be covering everything, all the stones, appears to be almost like vibrating a little as the voice is like booming out from the moss itself. And this voice goes, "I went easy on you the last time, but this second trespass will not be forgiven. Leave now or forfeit your very souls." And this voice is so loud, it's like, to most of you, it's almost deafening. However, Brock, you're not too bad, actually, because you've got like moss in your ears.
Yeah, I was gonna shout something, but it doesn't do anything because we're inside.
And this hand continues up, and like the stones on the outside are almost like magnetically attracted to it, and they start like assembling themselves into this giant, almost like golem-like stone behemoth with these like two massive fists covered in vein-like traceries of moss, soil, and grass dripping from them. And it's huge. It's like 15 foot tall, and it's literally like standing like with a leg like either side of the the main central stone with the green blade in it. As it sort of stands up and it flexes, you can hear the stones grinding over each other, and it sort of like almost casually just sort of goes like that, and like backhands a nearby tree which like is uprooted from the ground and like flung through the air and like disappears from sight, and a few moments later you hear like a faint splash in the distance as presumably it falls into the lake. This thing sort of like turns its head, although it's really just like a featureless bit of stone, so in your direction, and like flexes its hand, and again you hear like this like great boulders grinding against each other. What do you guys do?
So do you think this creature is basically going to stay at that spot and we could take some pot shots at it from range and try and draw it out? Or at least weaken it in some way? Is that worth doing from a distance?
Certainly we need to distract it so that
Well, that's what I meant. If we could pull it away from the stone by, you know, shooting at it, if it does hurt it or not, it might have to engage us, and we can maybe lead it away a little bit for someone to get behind it and grab the sword. Or
I could try.
I mean, I haven't really got much in the way of ranged weapons, but
I'll step into the ring again and try and run around the back of it to try and distract it.
As you're sort of breaking into running, you're like, oh, maybe we could do some range things. This huge behemoth like stretches out a hand towards one of the trees, and as it does, this tree just like disintegrates like into dust. It's like
So yeah, as Malcolm starts his maneuvering, I'll pull out the sun sword.
sunlight blazes out.
And then
And as you do that, you notice that there's actually like almost in response like a sort of green glow, so like bursts around the sword that's half into the stone. It's much more subdued though, whereas your sword's like, oh, rays of sunlight coming out. This is just like a sort of ambient sort of green glow around it.
yeah, I'll do my best to act as a distraction.
Okay, so basically you guys will win the initiative against this thing because it's very slow, so we're not going to have to worry about initiative. So Malcolm, you're running around the side. Obviously it's got multiple attacks, that's not a surprise, it's got two giant hands. You're running around the side. Weimar's trying to be a big distraction. Brock, what are you doing?
I'm going to launch a spear at it from a bit of distance, outside the circle. But how big is the circle roughly?
20 feet.
So it's sort of, it's covering the circle basically. It's so I'll stand sort of, 30 foot outside the circle and just launch a spear at it and see if it has any sort of effect on it, and again trying to distract it in some way.
Okay, so make your attack roll for that. Quentin,
Okay.
what are you doing?
I am coating an arrow in poison I have.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've got 14.
Okay, your arrow hits part of its stony body and just like breaks.
Yeah, it's just a spear, so yeah, it just
Sorry, yeah,
cracks.
your spear hits it, it just like splinters as it hits it.
Yeah.
Okay, Quentin, you're spending this round like coating your arrow in the poison.
Yep.
Not a problem. Weimar, as your distraction, you're literally just like, "Argh."
Yeah, it's sort of like, aha! Over here we have brought the sun sword to meet its twin from the triplets.
It's not the most inspiring speech you've ever heard. However, he's got a sunlight shining sword. That is a fairly obvious thing. So with one of its arms, it's going to try and strike you. It is still going to try and like whap Malcolm with the other.
Yep.
So let me just make those rolls. So you guys can tell by the fact that it just backhanded a tree like umpteen miles into the lake. If you get hit with one of these, it's going to hurt. Okay, so against Weimar, that's a 24.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll hit.
Okay,
So,
this might be very
see ya.
painful. This might be very painful for you, depending on my roll.
Right now, I'm more worried about the like that does
12
you know,
damage.
that does put me down a bit in the old hit points there, but does it also, does he, golf me into the lake?
It doesn't golf you into the lake, because like with that it was like under and up with the tree.
Yeah.
It sort of hits you square on. It does throw you to the edge of the circle, like you hit one of the trees, which is part of the damage you've taken, and you sort of like land on your side, but you're still alive.
Mm-hmm.
I can see your hit point total. You're still alive, but effectively that's just like gone like that's half your hit points gone.
Yeah, and it's like
Okay.
with absolutely just the wind knocked out.
Okay, so the one for Malcolm, the second hand. That's a 28.
That hits, yeah.
And for damage, that is a 9 hit points of damage. So you break into your run. The other hand, almost like it doesn't even look towards you. It just seems to like know where you are. It's just like, and again like smashes you into one of the trees at the very edge of this sort of clearing. Okay, and it's back round to you guys.
The problem is getting past it to get to the sword, then, obviously. Because it's just patting you away.
It's very deliberately gone like, right, I'm going to stand directly over the sword. So if anyone comes for it, I can just be like... And it's not a case of like it hit Weimar and Malcolm and then was like, right, I'm going to follow up and I'm going to like pound you into dirt. It was just like, go away, go away.
Right. Well, I'll look at the others and go, like, all three at the same time. I'm just gesturing because I can't hear a lot because I've got this stupid moss earbuds in.
John, is the sword like upright in it?
Yeah, it's very much sword in the stone style, like it's been plunged down into the stone.
Okay.
The hilts sort of sticking and the handles sticking out.
Okay.
I'm just thinking if all three run at the same time, it's got, potentially more targets than it can handle, hopefully.
So my plan is definitely to run at it again and try and get up onto the stone.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If we all try and do the same thing, one of us might get past. But
Okay, so is that the plan? Weimar, Malcolm, and Brock are all going to make a break for it, thinking, oh well, it can only kill 2 of us. It's not the best plan I've heard. Yeah. Well, missile attacks go first, so you can make your attack roll.
I'm going to aim for a mossy spot.
Okay.
oof.
But I've no idea what the poison effects are, even if they work. So
Yeah. As the obviously cross off the poison because you've used that.
yeah,
As it hits it, you notice that some of the moss that's on it sort of like goes brown and sort of like drops off as it's killed by the poison. Though you don't actually seem to have damaged the stone, but obviously moss, you've just like effectively poured like poison onto like a plant.
yep.
Not difficult to kill a plant with poison. And at that point, the stone creature appears to like bellow, not in pain, but like more in like fury. And it's like huge slate face like turns in your direction, Quentin. At which point, the 3 amigos start making their break for it.
Dumber and dumbest.
Okay, so you're all so I'm presuming you're all various points around, and you're all going to try and like run towards the middle.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, well I'll tell you for nothing. One of its attacks is going to be against Quentin because he's just like killed some of the moss, and one of its attacks is going to be against one of you guys, and it's just going to pretty much be like random. It's like whoever it gets to first. So I'm going to roll a d6. A 1 to 2, it's Brock. 3 to 4, it's Weimar. 5 to 6, it's Malcolm. Okay, it's Weimar. So Weimar and Quentin. So,
Bring it.
okay. So we'll do the one against Quentin first. So for the hit roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So
A
damage.
plus 20 is a bit brutal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not plus 20.
No, I'm
Plus
joking.
19.
It's just plus 8. That's 9 hit points of damage, Quentin, as one of these stone
Yep.
hands like backhands you. And against Weimar.
No.
Bloody hell.
12.
That's a shit roll.
Yeah. Okay, so as this hand comes towards you, you basically do like the Indiana Jones like slide on the floor, and the hand just like sails over you, like probably like I don't know, like takes your hood off or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. However, Wymox has had to like slide and roll to avoid it. Hasn't reached the stone. However, Brock and Malcolm, you've both sort of like reached opposite sides of the stone. Like I say, it's like a very tall stone with his sword plunged into the top of it. Since you've used your whole round to like move, you'll pretty much be able to get to the top of it. You both sort of like climb up and you're like facing each other across this stone.
Okay.
At which point, as your gaze falls on this glowing green sword that sticks from the dolmen, you both are assailed. I say assailed. You're both assailed with a vision that strikes you. Malcolm, in your mind, you see ancient elves, people of your blood, ancient wizards, shamans, you might call them, in a more primitive time, taking this green shard of metal and with the greatest of their alchemical and magical arts, fashioning it into a great blade. Brock, you see the elders, the priests of your own people, the Ice Walkers, trekking into the mountains in search of something which fell from the night sky, and in a great crater they find this sliver of green metal, and the shaman of your people, with great holy reverence, take this shard of metal and they work it into a blade of holy might and majesty. And then you're both back in the room. Okay, so you guys don't have much time to think about this. Obviously, this thing's like flaming around. And it's pretty soon going to be like, oh, those two have made it to the sword.
So I'll grab the sword.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to sort of nod to Malcolm as he sort of makes an attempt, and I'm just going to like launch myself at this thing with my two-handed sword to try and distract it.
Before you launch yourself, Malcolm, make me a strength check.
Come on, once and future king.
Just call me Arthur from now on. That's a success, John.
Okay, so you start pulling it, and very slowly, I mean, you've not pulled it all the way out yet, it starts like sliding out of the stone. As you start pulling it out, you hear from like the distance, you hear like a rumbling, almost like an earthquake or an earth tremor, as you're sort of slowly pulling out. Like, and you notice like a few like leaves fall off trees and a few branches fall down. You basically got like one more round of like pulling it out, and then it will be free.
Okay.
Okay, at which point you hear the creaking of the stone Goliath as it turns around and obviously sees you there like...
Yeah, so I'm just going to lay into it to try and
Okay, so since
draw its attention, but
Brock's originally in the same place as Malcolm, and he's like leaping at it, sort of Conan style, it's basically going to do one attack against Brock and one attack against Malcolm, so it's basically going to try and like palm you away and then like smash him away from the sword. So I'm going to do... However, you will get to make your attack first, Brock, so
there you
you're
are.
literally like leaping.
Whether it does anything, but we'll give it a go, definitely. Oh, definitely not.
It's wonderful. We're doing great.
Okay, so you don't manage to get any...
We're distracting it, maybe.
Okay, so I'm going to
Didn't
do
want to.
its attack against Brock.
Didn't want to damage my sword anyway, so
It is stone. So
That's 24.
yeah, that'll do it. Yeah,
You take 12 hit points of damage as this stone just like backhands you out the air. Okay, So the attack against Malcolm. And if you get, I will tell you, if you get hit, you're going to have to make a strength roll to like hold on to the sword. Because obviously
Fair
its
enough.
main impetus is it's trying to slap you away from it.
Oof.
Okay. It swings its hand towards you, and you basically like duck down behind the sword as it like over the top of you. Like you feel the stone sort of like lean slightly with just like the weight of its passage. And then you one more strength roll and you've got it.
There we go. Oh no.
Okay, so Brock, you've sort of like you've sort of been backhanded like backwards a bit from where you've landed. Like you're basically at the foot of the stone that like Malcolm's on. You can see like Malcolm trying to pull the sword out, and he's like, but it seems to be like resisting, or it's like sunk deeply into the stone.
We sent a boy to do a man's job. I'll go and try and assist him if I can.
Okay, make me a strength roll.
And now we're making a mess of it. Oh, and you did as well, look.
Okay, so you're both struggling to pull this thing out. Weimar and Quentin, what are you guys doing? Obviously, the stone thing's just going to concentrate on Brock and Malcolm now.
Shoot some more arrows at it.
Yeah, perfectly valid.
Shout encouragement.
You got this, guys.
Keep it up, we're only dying.
We're not doing a great job of distracting
No,
it, are we?
that's it.
Does it have a face?
It has a head, but it doesn't have like features on it. It's just like a flat bit of stone.
Mm.
But like from the rough position on the body, that seems to be its head.
Can I make it to the thing?
Yeah,
The sword?
yeah. It's not concentrating on you now. So
Oh, I'm tagging in as well. It's a 3 versus 1 match now. So
okay.
I'll bust in as like Brock is just,
Okay.
powering away.
As you leap up, make a strength roll.
So it's a group effort. Come on. Come on.
Whoa, that Lou.
I loosened it for you.
Yeah. And so did Malcolm. I just came over as like,
Okay,
what's
so
the big deal?
so sort of like grabbing hold of like the cloth covering that Malcolm's got around it. Malcolm's put. You basically grasp the like quite big hilt of this sword. 'Cause it's like a big sword like your own. You grasp it using the cloth to like shield your hands. You pull it, and both you and Malcolm and Brock fall off this stone as this emerald green blade, like with a shh, slides free from the stone. You hear like rumblings all around the stone, like behemoth that's been sort of like turning around, ready to like slap Malcolm into next week. So like suddenly this voice like booms out, and it's like, "No, what have you done?" And as you watch, like bits of stone start just like falling from it as it like begins to almost like crumble and disintegrate. And as it falls to pieces, the last bit of it to go is like its body, and from within the body what looks like a human skeleton, like very old, like topples out and lands on the ground amidst the cascading stone. Then as you watch, like the other sort of like stones that set around begin to like crumble and fall to pieces. You're hearing like rumbles in the distance, and like the ground begins to shake. As you sort of look, you see like cracks appearing in the ground.
Run.
I'm gonna gesture everyone to run back the way we came. Get away from this area, if not at least sort of thing. And I'm
Okay.
gonna start running back towards the boat direction.
So you all run back to the boat. He's still there, although he looks like he's shitting himself. You can see that there's cracks on the ground here as well. There's like rumblings everywhere. That you can hear the sound of like trees falling in the distance. The water on the lake is disturbed. He sort of gestures you into the boat. rowing as fast as he can back across the river. Gets you to his like little hut. You can hear, even though you're like a day away, you can hear like shouting from like the direction of like Fort Vulgar, and as you look in that direction you see like a couple of buildings just like collapse as though like a giant earthquake seems to be like gripping the whole of the Dolmen Wood.
So I'll sort of be shouting like everyone else, just like run and get the get the patients from the bunkhouse. I'm slower than everyone else. You don't need to wait for me.
Okay, yeah, that's not a problem. You run to whoever does it runs to Fort Vulgar. Like buildings are collapsing. It's like the greatest earthquake the Dolmen Wood has ever known has gripped this place. Buildings are collapsing. People are panicking, running about. People are screaming. Fires have started. Trees are falling down. Cracks are opening in the ground. Occasionally, you see what appear to be like just like flashes of like bright light that quickly like disappear, just like randomly in different places, as though like some sort of like energy has been like unleashed. And as you sort of run back to where you've left Weimar near Rem's hut, you notice a few snowflakes start to fall.
Where are we going to head? I mean, where can we go?
Back to the gate, right?
Yeah, but potentially we're sort of travelling the whole of
Right.
Dolmen Woods, travelling back in it.
Well, to be fair, if you want to run back to the gates, I think we can like montage that. I'm not going to force you to like.
Yeah, we can do that, but I can't remember. That's a few days away, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that would be the obvious place to head, I guess.
Okay.
For no other any other reasonable sort of destination to go, have we?
Okay, so over the course of the next 5 or so days, you run back along the road. You meet panicked people, sort of like trying to get away from whatever's happening, but it seems to be gripping the whole of the Dolmen Wood. Like I say, trees are collapsing, cracks are opening in the ground. Occasionally there's these strange flashes, and where they like hit things just like explode. Like as you're running past a tree at one point, you see like this flash and the tree just like detonates, as though like this sort of like chaotic energy has just been like unleashed. The weather has turned noticeably colder, which for you guys is a bit more like normal. Like snow's falling, people are panicking. It's like the world's ending basically. You pretty much hot-foot it for like 5 days as much as you can, until eventually you reach the Wench Gate, as I described it previously. This sort of entwined trees creating this gateway with all these carved wooden faces on it. However, as you approach now, instead of like greeting you in a jovial manner, as they did previously in like random chat, all of these faces appear to be like silently like screaming. They're all like... What do? You stand at the
There
threshold.
was names or initials or something carved into it, wasn't there?
Yeah, there were like people's initials carved into it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think, didn't Quentin decipher what it said? You had to write your name in it or something to open it from this side.
Blood and sap.
Yeah, that was the other side. Wasn't it different instructions on this side?
If you give me but a moment, I will tell you.
I might be wrong.
Okay, so... No, the graffiti on it is just like people's names.
Ah, right. So it is the same process as before then.
As far as you're aware.
So we look for a nearby tree that seems to have cuts and...
There's loads of them.
Yeah.
You're in a forest.
Yeah, I didn't know if they were special trees. I can't remember if they were any particular ones. So we'll get some sap then, I guess. And
You cut a tree, you get some sap out of it. That's not... In fact, to be honest, you probably didn't even have to cut a tree. There's plenty that have fallen down and collapsed with everything that's going on.
Yep.
Getting sap's not a problem.
And ever keen to get out of this place, I shall cut my hand and mix it with the sap grab
Indeed.
hold of Lan's hand, and if it opens.
As you do that, and you sort of put your hand like, where the threshold of the gate is, like a sort of shimmering field appears, and on the other side you can see Valconen.
Yeah, so I shall, run through with Lan by my side.
You dash through.
Yeah, I'll follow.
Okay. You all, presumably, dash through the gateway to Valconen. It shimmers shut behind you a few moments later, and you find yourself in the wooded clearing near the Valconen side of the gate in what appears to be a balmy Valconen summer.
Summer.
And as you all sort of burst in, you see like Brock stood there with a look of like surprise and confusion on his face. You follow Brock's gaze, and at the far end of the clearing, where once there were just trees, you now see that some of the trees appear to have been cleared, and there is a stone statue that appears to depict all of you. It's covered in moss, cracks, and signs of age.
Boy, how many swords do we have on the statues?
Well, you
Or
see
do we
that
have any swords?
you're depicted with your equipment as you were when you went through. So like
Yeah.
you've got your sword like in its scabbard.
Yeah.
I'm guessing we missed the deadline for old Green Teeth then.
He seems like it. Oh,
As you say that, and you sort of look at the statue, you can see that at the bottom of it there's like a sort of plinth with some sort of writing, but it's like overgrown with like moss and various plants.
Yeah, has it got any sort of date if we clear it away, or year, or sort of
You
reference?
sort of head towards it, and you brush the moss off, and you blow away the detritus of ages. And as you reveal the writing below, it's written in the common tongue, so easy to read. You see written there, so like in carved angular writing, it says, "This statue is carved in memory of my friends long gone these 10 years, in the hope that they may return. Krosnon."
Jesus, our bill's going to be bloody astronomical by the time we get back.
And as you say that, you hear like the sound of like crashing and a loud sort of almost like explosions around you. And as you look across the sort of like the Wolf Woods around you, you see in the distance what appear to be the sort of hazy spectral outlines of like much larger trees that seem to be like slowly like superimposing themselves over the area. And that is where we end the session for today. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Cheers.
man.
Yep.
And as we finish out for what's possibly the last session of this year, as the Dolmen Wood begins to phase or crash its way into Valconen, as the linchpin that maintained the enchantment, keeping it in a pocket realm, has now been removed, the ley lines, the destructive energies that you saw, snap back into their previous conditions, like a piece of elastic pulled taut and then released. The Dolmen Wood begins to once more re-enter the mortal world, bringing who knows what dangers and complications with it. But hopefully we will find out next time. So thank you very much for playing, guys, and to anyone who's watching either now or in the future. Obviously we'll have a bit of a chat about this, and we'll sort out XP and the like shortly. But for now, it just remains me to thank my wonderful players and anyone who's watching this. If we don't do another session this year, take it easy, and hopefully we'll catch you next year.